You may be masithandaze. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interest of the people. On magtige God, ons bid dat u gedrende ons vergadrings, ons die nodige wysheid sal gee, en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou, en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom, en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela Nkosi ilizwe lethu nabantu balo, umisele ukulunga kwiphondo lethu. Nkosi sikelela iAfrika, gcina abantwana bayo, khokhela inkokheli zayo. Nkosi nike uxolo iAfrika. All this we beg in your most holy name. Amen. Sicela sihlale phansi, you may be seated. I recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to inform the House that questions to Minister Madikizela will stand over with the agreement of the relevant questioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Are there any objections to the motion, the request by the Chief Whip? No objections. Thank you, Chief Whip. Thanks, honorable members. I just want, before the business proceeds, and just make a point about Rule 65, if you recall, honorable members. In the debate on the 22nd August 2019, members requested the presiding officer, both myself and the Honorable Deputy Speaker, for an opportunity to explain themselves in terms of Rule 65, where they felt they've been misquoted or misunderstood by other honorable members. As presiding officers, we dealt with the requests on their merits, and I'm of the view that fairness prevailed in all those cases. Fairness prevailed in all those cases. The following important information, however, relating to the application of this rule, I would like to bring it to the attention of the members here. That an explanation during a debate is only allowed with the prior consent of the presiding officer. Explanations will only be allowed when a material part of a member's speech has been misquoted or misunderstood. Members are allowed an explanation and may not introduce a new matter, and no debate is allowed upon the explanation itself. The presiding officer or officers may request that a member provide the text of the explanation prior to making a decision on the granting of such a request. So the explanation may not contain offensive language, court controversy, debate the matter, or contain charges or attacks on another member. The rule cannot be used by members to request that the member speaking explains himself. I think this is important, honorable members, that the rule cannot be used by members to request that the member explains himself or herself on any matter he or she is raising at the present time. It is very clear that this rule is not intended to settle political disputes and does not provide an opportunity to get a second bite at the cherry in conveying the message. Honorable members operate in a political environment where contestation takes place all the time and where arguments are won and lost on the ability to persuade others of your point of view. The general rules of debate provide for sufficient protection of members when debating issues and will be enforced by the presiding officers on a very fair basis, These rules should be utilized only when warranted in strict compliance with the above prescripts. Furthermore, presiding officers are expected to make a judgment call on whether a material part of a speech has indeed been misunderstood or misquoted. And it cannot be expected of the presiding officers to do so without properly applying their minds in this regard. Honorable members who are of the view that the rule can be improved or otherwise, then there is an opportunity to engage the presiding officer, the speaker, and the rules committee, because fortunately, currently, we are revising the rules of order. And that will then be the best opportunity with the rules review committee and the subcommittee that the rules committee has appointed. So I trust that this guidance, honorable members, does shed some light insofar as this specific rule and its application. I therefore thank you, honorable members. Now we have interpellations. We have 3 interpellations today. And the first interpellation is by Honorable Kama to Honorable Minister of Community Safety. I recognize Honorable Minister Fritz.
Enkosi, Speaker, wena so long.
Siyabulela Gcirha.
I want to thank Mr. Honorable Kama for the question, because remember this was indeed quite an important commission, and so following the Commission of Inquiry, a task team was established consisting of representatives of the South African Police Services, the Department of Community Safety, as well as civil society. This task team worked through all 20 Commission recommendations. This included monitoring progress by the SAPs and provincial role players. Report on progress was submitted to the Office of the Premier as well as the Standing Committee on Community Safety. The most recent report compiled as part of the task team was the Monitoring and Oversight report compiled in October 2018 in terms of specifically recommendation 3. The work of the task team has now been subsumed by the whole of society approach. This initiative is led by Khayelitsha jointly by the Deputy Director General of Western Cape Department of Health and the Head of Department of Community Safety. A design team has been established to coordinate the work of different provincial departments, City of Cape Town and SAPS to enhance service delivery in the area. There are 4 interconnected aspects to the HOSA approach in Khayelitsha. One is a social cluster themed to address the social ills of the challenge or challenges. 2, spatial cluster focusing on how communities are structured and organized, including infrastructural planning and development. 3, economic cluster to address economic opportunities. And 4, safety, drawing from the Khayelitsha Commission and the key concerns in the area. It was clear that the other 3 themes would be clustered around safety in order to improve safety in Khayelitsha. The initiative will analyze crime statistics and trends and spatial development trends in the area to decide where geographic interventions should be based. Focus areas will include safety in schools and around the school environment, building trust in the community, and the alcohol harm reduction project. The approach seeks to work with the community and business community.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I recognize Honorable Kama.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you to the MEC for the response. Speaker, there is no doubt that millions were spent on this commission to paint the national government and SAPS in a negative light. This is why, after so many years, Speaker, the provincial government has failed dismally to implement some of the recommendations that were assigned to it. On page 383, the commission report stated clearly that evidence that emerged during the commission made it clear that there was an emerging young gang culture in Khayelitsha that required an immediate response. Recommendation 12 was clear that dogs should establish and lead a multi-sectoral task team on youth gangs. This never happened, and as a result, young boys that led gangs like Vuras, Vatos, and Italians in 2013 have now graduated into big gangs like Guptas and your Boko Harams, which are terrorizing the Cape Flats on a daily basis. An excuse that has been made, Speaker, has been used often in the House is that the department is one of the stakeholders responsible for the implementation of the National Anti-Gang Strategy, and that it would be duplication if they implemented the multi-sectoral task team on youth gangs. This is a blatant lie, because the anti-gang strategy does not have a focus on youth gangs. The ongoing gang wars taking place in Khayelitsha and surroundings, the high number of young people that are armed and terrorizing our communities are partly due to the failure of the department to act on the recommendations of the Commission. Speaker, the recommendations of the Commission are binding, and therefore the provincial government cannot be selective on implementing these recommendations and ignore others when it feels like. The Commission was supposed to be a blueprint to enhance safety in the province. The failure to implement its recommendations contributed immensely to the province being a murder capital, and the provincial government should accept this. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kama. I recognize Honorable Allen.
Honorable Speaker, 3 days ago I have noted an article in the Daily Maverick where the author noticeably questions why the National Minister of Police and the National Department of Police are not implementing the solutions by the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry. Allow me to expand. SAPS, under the leadership of the national government, failed women in Khayelitsha in their unwillingness to implement the Domestic Violence Act. To date, no FSC unit has been created in any of the precincts in Khayelitsha. Also, a report by the Western Cape Department of Community Safety in March revealed that training courses for officers had not yet been provided or attended. The human resource requirement of police stations and the urgent reallocation of human resources are yet to be met. These are arguably 4 of the most vital recommendations of the 13 directed to SAPS, but no implementation. The Commission noted that it is clear that policing in Khayelitsha is particularly challenging. Like anyone in this entire province, even in Khayelitsha, we all deserve to be safe and secure. And with that, our fundamental rights for the residents of Khayelitsha have been hampered due to the ineffectiveness of SAPS. The Western Cape government has made progress and remains committed, as discussed by the Minister, to all the recommendations directed to the Western Cape government, along with the Premier's countless commitments to fighting crime in this province. I would urgently ask, I would even go as far as say friends in the opposition benches to speak to the National Minister, so that he can put his weight behind the recommendations and see how we can truly bring safety to Khayelitsha and the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Allen. I recognize Honorable Kama.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I think the provincial government, the DA government in the Western Cape, needs to realize that it has been given an opportunity to lead in the province. And it must stop that every time when there's an issue they have to address, the excuse is that National is not doing that and that. Speaker, what is clear from docs and provincial government What is clear is that DOCS and provincial government were assigned recommendations to implement, which they ignored. We also have to accept that crime is not a responsibility of police only. Fortunately, MEC Fritz understands this better. He acknowledges that things like poor service delivery, poverty, unemployment, and inequality contribute to the crime situation. The Commission itself noted this anomaly when it highlighted inadequate sanitation, insufficient public lighting, informal housing, and poor road infrastructure as factors contributing to high levels of violent crimes in the area, and this limiting police's ability to fight crime. In police precincts, Speaker, with many informal settlements, crime and murder rate are always high, and nothing is done to address this. While the City of Cape Town refuses to use the USDG fund to develop informal settlements, the DOCS is happy to just point figures at national government and subs. This must end, Speaker. Stop the blame and complaint game, do the actual work. Recommendation 8, Speaker, highlighted some challenges with regards to functioning of CPFs. It recommended that an investigation was needed on what the appropriate role of CPFs could be and what constraints there may be on CPFs in order for them to perform such role, including resource constraints. Just last week, Speaker, MEC Fritz told the House that there are about 5 CPFs that his department is not working with, or they are not working with the department because they did not want to account to the department. On top of that, CPFs are not participating on anything at the current moment until they have new elected leadership, as reported to the committee by the department last week. This is wrong and totally acceptable. The ill treatment of CPFs must be condemned. As if that was not enough, Recommendation 8 was on the use of CCTV cameras. It stated that consideration should be given to relocating the cameras for maximum effect and
Member,
increasing.
you need to wrap up. Your time is up.
Are we working on 3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, thanks, Speaker.
Of course.
In wrapping up, Speaker, what I want to say, Speaker, and use this opportunity also is to applaud the KDF in Khayelitsha for trying, because of the cries of the community, to launch. Recently, they have launched their, I think, project Uyabone, where they will install 45 cameras. And the question will be, what is the debate
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you. Your time is
to
up.
address these recommendations?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Okay. I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. Sometimes, Honourable Member, and I'm saying this with absolute respect, Honourable Speaker, when I answer and you just have a ready-made script, you haven't listened to what I said because you just continue to read from your ready-made script, and it doesn't sometimes make logical sense. But the Honourable Member is a good man, so I think we have some good understanding. So, Honourable Speaker, through you to the Honourable Kama, the one fundamental issue that you, as the ANC, have control over, that the National Minister had to just sign the National MOU regarding the Khayelitsha Commission. Up to today, it's still not signed. It's still not signed. And then, then this party come here and they lecture us about cooperation, all the other stuff, Honourable Member, and I must say to you, that was exactly what I was talking about, the all-of-society approach. You remember, as I said, that multi-party, the task team, to deal with exactly what you said. But I also want to say, the provincial approach to the national gang strategy has also been concluded, and we are waiting. And of course, you're correct that, you can have a national the national provincial gang strategy. If you don't have it in the province, it's absurd, because there's a new form of gangs, as you indicate, in our townships. And I think Boko Haram is far more than youth gangs. They actually border now on syndicates, and they are very, very dangerous. I mean, there are now illegal Sabines closed, not because of law enforcement. They are closing because they can't pay the extortion money that these gangs, powerful gangs, are operating. Yes, you run was behind them with some of them. So the point I'm making, Honorable Kama, is that kind of thing. And so I'm saying we're still waiting on the provincial commissioner, but there's a new commissioner with a great will to make stuff happen. So I'm sure we're going to have that. You remember the provincial response to the national gang strategy? I'm sure that will go in now. I also want to just say that, even the Social Justice Coalition took the national, on the Gaelicha report to court. And the Equality Court ruled in favor of, and held against the national minister. And we're just looking up, the one thing the court must just conclude is still the remedies involved, because they agreed with, with us and with the Social Justice Coalition of the under-resourcing, which is like the fundamental issue in the Western Cape. There's also a very interesting, another point that, and I must say this, and I really want to, and I'm saying it very constructively. I'm not really pointing fingers. But I really think the national minister and the ANC government must stop hiding behind the veil of environmental design and, social issues. And I agree, those are contributing, but they must just get their basics right. They must get policing right. You can go with me now to any police station, go with me in Belhar, or go with me even in one of the areas in Nyanga, the police station. This level of service delivery is just absolutely pathetic. So the point I'm making is they must really honestly stop hiding behind the veil. We must pierce the veil and show them up and say, hello, stop hiding behind this nonsense. The last thing I want to just say, Honourable Member, and I think you, and I see Honourable Dagbo was applauding you very loudly, but the community police forums, their time has expired. There's a constitution that's 5 years. Now, if 5 years has passed, hello, get into your head that they must get out and invite new people to be elected. No, get them to be elected. But they want to use the forum for their own source.
Honourable
They want
Minister,
to use,
you need to wrap up.
yes, they want to use it for their own political problem. That's the problem. But I want to say thanks for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Order, Honourable Members. That concludes this interpellation. The next interpellation is by Honourable the Leader of Opposition to the Premier. I recognize the Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to the Provincial Leader of the Opposition for the question. Speaker, the answer to this question depends on what the Honourable Dugmore means by the term pending crime and or corruption charges. And I say this because if he means charges in the sense of being allegations that he or his party may conjure up against members of my cabinet from time to time, but which have no substance in terms of any bona fide investigation by an appropriate organ of state, then the answer is no. If, however, he means circumstances when a member of my cabinet is the subject of a bona fide investigation by SAPS or the NPA in relation to an alleged crime, which includes corruption, then I will obviously consider the facts at my disposal and then determine what action can or should be taken in respect of such minister. An independent consideration of the correct facts will be, of course, always be relevant, never more so than in the era when this era of fake news. Captured organs of state or social media comments are too often mistaken or for the full and complete truth in a matter. Honourable Dugmore will, of course, hopefully also be aware that his use of the term disciplinary action in relation to me and my ministers is incorrect, given that our cabinet ministers are not my employees, but rather serve at my discretion, as was explained recently by none other than the President himself, President Ramaphosa, when pointing this out to the Public Protector in response to her suggestion that he was capable and indeed obligated to discipline Minister Gordhan just recently.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. I recognize Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Speaker. For the past decade, we have been made to believe that the DA is a corrupt-free organization which would take every step possible to ensure that those who are found guilty of corruption are brought to book. Now, besides the clear bias of MEC Bradell, when he deals with councillors, and it's a matter of record, he's biased, the manifesto of the party urged people to use their votes to ensure a strong DA because, in their words, the DA was serious about fighting corruption.
I recognize
Premier
the Chief
Windy.
Whip. Honourable Dagmar, will you please take your seat?
Mr.
There's a
Speaker,
point of order.
on a point of order, is it parliamentary for one honourable member to call another honourable member biased? Yes. I would argue it is not.
Let me say the following, honourable members. Rule 59 is clear on what we can or cannot do as honourable members. And one is that we may not cast aspersions on the sitting member of the House. And that especially on the integrity of the minister who's sitting here. So on that point, then I would request Honourable Dagmar to withdraw that part because it's out of order in terms of Rule 59.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I do withdraw and give notice that we'll bring a substantive motion to demonstrate and prove the bias which we are alleging.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
He also made a bold statement that he would ensure the Western Cape had a government of integrity to honour Madiba and each and every citizen. But it appears that this administration, led by Premier Windy, has more than one of its members of the Executive Council under a dark cloud. An example to prove this would be MEC Madikizela, his lavish birthday celebration, which is clear was sponsored by certain suppliers in the building industry. That is beyond the dispute. If you read the Public Protector's report, it is beyond dispute that donations were made. We would like to ask the Premier, will he make public the report that the former Premier indicated she had compiled through an internal investigation? Will he make it public? Was MEC Madikizela, given this questionable ethical conduct, was he in fact shifted because the Premier fears further revelations in regard to that particular MEC? But it is clear that the Premier does not need to wait for criminal charges to actually look at this particular issue, which remains unresolved. A substantive motion, Speaker, was brought before this House last week, calling for an investigation against MEC Simmers for the alleged theft of electricity at his residence in George. It is also a matter of public record that a criminal case, CAS 355/1/2016, interfering with electric apparatus, was withdrawn by the municipality for reasons that had very little to do with the merits of the case. I therefore want the Premier to give his commitment that if indeed a criminal case is reopened against MEC Simmers or any other MEC, that he would then take the particular action that he has now committed to in his initial response to this interpellation.
Thank you, Honourable Member Dagmar. I recognize the Premier. I recognize Honourable Mackenzie. I am sorry, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm sure the Honourable Member can tweet to Member Helen Zille, former Premier Helen Zille, and ask a copy of that report. But Speaker, the short answer on the member's question, whether the Premier will take action against any member of his cabinet, the short answer, whether the DA government governs, the DA will take action against any member who faces pending criminal or corruption. Can you protect me, Speaker? The DA-led government believes in open, transparent, and accountable government in the service of the people. But, Honourable Speaker, there's not one member of the cabinet who faces criminal charges or corruption charges. This is not how the DA do things. This is how the ANC do things. Think of Nomvula Braipek Mokonyana, Batabile Dlamini, who were retained by President Ramaphosa in his cabinet throughout 2018. And even make it back on the ANC's parliamentary list despite criticism. Currently, the mayor of Durban even withdrew her resignation letter. That is the quality of people the ANC's got. The toothless ANC's Integrity Commission. Speaker, there is no new dawn in the ANC. They reward the implicated minister in state capture with short landings. Even in this provincial legislature, there were members of the Brown Envelope Brigade who applied to be here, who were on their list, and now still sitting on the tasked him to rechange the ANC. How does a party with that low level of credibility still ask such a question? The DA believes in the rule of law, and although one is considered to be innocent until proven guilty, we hold all these members to the highest standard, not by the lowest common denominator, which is corruption. I thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Speaker.
you,
It's clear
thank
from
you,
the
Honourable
question that we are
Mackenzie.
putting a challenge.
Sorry, Honourable Dagmo, I have not recognized you yet. Thank you, Honourable Mackenzie. I now recognize the leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Speaker. Let's be clear that our question is that in terms of charges that are pending or will be brought, what will the Premier do? Will he commit himself? That is the issue for debate here. Because it's clear that the ANC has shown leadership in KwaZulu-Natal. It has dealt with a situation where there are particular charges that have been laid, and it is following a process. We are a constitutional democracy. But it's clear that this Premier has not been accountable, and we also need to hear from the Premier and from his MEC that they are serious about conducting an investigation as to why the municipality withdrew the charges against MEC Simmers. Recently, even more information on the alleged corruption of MEC Simmers has surfaced. For example, when he was a councillor at the Eden District Municipality, he allegedly unjustifiably claimed from the subsistence and transport allowance. He was invited by a DA administrator to attend a standing committee on the Premier. The invitation was sent from N. Schilder at DA Western Cape Government.za between 2011 and 2013. He also claimed thousands from the municipality for subsistence and transport while he did not have a driver's license and was driving a car that was not roadworthy. It has been brought to our attention that between 2011 and 2012, the member claimed tax from SARS for his travelling and received over 8,000 Rand refund. Why must the Premier wait for charges to be laid before he does the right thing of actually considering members and their removal who will jeopardize his mission on putting this government on a path of integrity? In closing, the Premier...
Order, honourable members. Would you please take your seat, Honourable Dagmo? I recognize Honourable Chief Whip of the Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I would like to ask from the Honourable Speaker whether it's parliamentary for Member Simmers when I ask as it's here and he responds by saying, oh, you want. Is it parliamentary? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Honourable the Chief Whip of the Opposition. It's a difficult one. I didn't hear what the member was saying, but if he did say so, Oyomond is similar to say shut up. Is that correct? And I ruled that shut up is unparliamentary, and it was withdrawn. Now let me. Can I please chair this meeting? Can I be the speaker? I'm presiding, so please, honourable members. Honourable Simmers, Minister Simmers, did you utter those words?
Speaker, I did say oh your mond, but the English translation is please keep quiet. Thank you.
All right.
Speaker.
All right. Order, honourable members. Order, honourable members. Honourable Murray, what's your point of order?
Meneer hou jou mond is nie bly stil nie. Dit is 'n aggressiewe manier om te sê hou jou snoer, shut up. So dis dieselfde as shut up. Ek is vir Afrikaans en 'n Engelse man kan nie vir my sê wat dit beteken nie.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Murray. Thank you, Honourable Murray. Ek mos no Afrikaans om te leer. May I request, if there's a contestation, that because the member said it without pressing the mic, so it's difficult to refer. But if the member indeed said so, that is unparliamentary, and I wish that members monitor, the use of language we use. But let us proceed now. I hope we are all happy. The member, I've asked the honorable member, Honorable Lecker, I asked the honorable, the honorable Minister Simmers to confirm whether he in fact said so or not. And when he stood up, he had a different view. Honorable Minister Simmers, did you say Hoyomont?
Speaker, I did indeed say Hoyomont, yes.
Will you please withdraw that, sir?
I will withdraw it, but then I will give the member Afrikaans dictionary. Thank you.
Honorable Simmers, you withdraw unconditionally.
I withdraw unconditionally.
Thank you very much.
Zonder voorwaardes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Simmers. I learned something from Honorable Marie, what else I could say if I was sitting that side. May I please request the Leader of the Opposition to proceed? He was on the floor.
Speaker, just on a point of order, could the table or yourself please indicate how many more seconds I have? Because I need to structure my last comment.
We kept the time. It's exactly 1 minute, 12 seconds. That's left, yes.
Chairperson, this is not a witch hunt by the opposition. We have committed ourselves to being united, to being effective, to being vigilant, to being responsive, but also to being constructive. The concern that we have is that there is email evidence which indicates conduct unbecoming of an MEC, a provincial minister of this government. What we expect from the Premier and from the MEC is to come clean on this particular issue of the travel allowances. It is our responsibility to bring to the attention of this House what are allegations. That is why we're doing, not because we have anything personal about Honourable Member Simmers or any other member of this. This is not personal. This relates to conduct, ethical conduct that we are expecting from MECs. So what we would like to ask the Premier in regard to the email correspondence which we will provide to you in regard to all of these allegations of travel claims, would you give this House a commitment that you would investigate those and actually provide this House with the information about these very serious allegations about the abuse of the taxpayers' money in regard to unwarranted claims?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Thank you very much. I now recognize the Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I think, first of all, I will reiterate, and it was said by the Leader of the Opposition, that we stand for good governance, and I did speak about integrity and doing things properly. I can also say that I believe that I have done that ever since coming to this House, specifically dealing with corruption, specifically dealing with these kind of issues. I think way back to dealing with David Malatsi. I remember raising it under members' privilege in this very House, taking it to the Public Protector, and processes ended up with that very member or minister then ending up serving prison time. I think I've shown it with officials in the departments that I have been the minister of in the last few years, and we could actually draw the detail of those officials who have also been arrested and processes have been followed. I think exactly the same when I was in the position of the honourable member there. I think back to bringing issues to this House of the honourable, of the then Mayor Wilderman and Municipal Manager Satishu, and even getting them in this House. And I think the Honourable Mvimbi will know this, that getting them in this very House in our standing committee, admitting to double dipping in trips to Paris, in using municipal credit cards for Friday afternoon shopping sprees, etc. So I want to say that I absolutely am committed to making sure that we have clean, ethical government in this province. So you have asked actually a few questions besides your last points. I think the first questions you raised were around the issues that were raised in the previous Parliament of this House around Minister Madikizela, investigations of the then Premier, the Public Protector process, the challenges to the public protector process, and I give an undertaking to go and see if I can find those documents and make them available to the honourable member. I also will say, as in the issues that he has raised about the honourable member Simmers in this House, Minister Simmers, I have actually received written correspondence to this effect from another political party in this House. I think everybody is aware of it because it was sent to me but also sent to the media. That has been a subject of an investigation, and I'm told that I should have the report on my desk within the next few days. Obviously, then what I will do is send it back to where it was raised from, and I will do exactly the same. If you give me those details, as you have said, I will give the undertaking that we will follow process, investigate, and deal with it appropriately. Because as I said in the beginning, that we believe in good, clean government, and when these issues are raised, they must be investigated. And then, of course, there are different paths to follow once that investigation has been completed. I will give it back to the honourable member, and then either I or he are able to follow different paths. But I said as well, while we are uphold the rule of law and our constitution, we also believe in innocence until proven guilty. We also believe that when you have these kinds of charges, that you obviously lay them outside of this House with certain consequences. If you lay those charges and make them public outside of the House and are seen to be untrue, obviously you must deal with it. And that's why we have in our parliamentary democracy the opportunity for members to raise issues within the confines of this Parliament. You have protection in which to do that, so that we can ensure that we have proper, clean and effective government. So my answer is, in closing, that's exactly what I will do. If I can ask you to formally submit to me, it will be easier than drawing it from Hansard, and then it is a formal document to me, and we will follow.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Your time is up. Thank you very much, honourable members. That concludes this interpellation. Now the next interpellation is by Honourable van der Westhuizen to Honourable Minister of Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. I now recognize the Minister.
Speaker, can I, before the Minister speak, on a point of order, ask the relevance of this question? Because on local government, we have anybody can
sorry,
stay.
Honourable Member, that cannot be a point of order.
It's a sweetheart question.
No, but that's a frivolous point of order. I'm sorry. I recognize the Minister.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much. It's not a sweetheart question, it's an interpellation. Section 158 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa provides for certain criteria which make citizens who qualify to vote for a municipal council eligible or non-eligible to be a member of that council. Thus, any member of the community who qualifies in terms of the criteria referred to in the Constitution and has the conviction as leaders to serve the community in an effective, accountable, transparent manner, whilst facilitating public participation, should be encouraged to serve as a public representative at local government level. My department's mandate is to focus on the development of those serving within the municipal landscape and enable the creation of a local government that people would want to serve in collaboration with other stakeholders. Actions my department has taken to build the capacity of councillors that have and are currently serving in local government space are mostly based on identified developmental needs. These needs are based on concerns reported to the department's audit outcomes, matters reporting in the media, and information shared by citizens. The department has previously rolled out a customized skills program with the Nelson Mandela Bay University as implementing agent. The skills program could translate into a qualification and contained, amongst others, the following modules: the role of the Speaker and Mayor in local government, oversight in local government, guidelines for councillors, the law governing decisions and decision-making in local government, code of conduct for councillors, procedures for disciplinary hearings and investigations, rules of procedures, conduct at meetings of a municipal council, the role of councillors in supply chain management, delegations of powers in local government, the constitutional mandate of local government, and the roles and responsibilities of municipal councillors in terms of the MFMA. My department also realized that despite rolling out this modular program, additional focus was needed on soft skills, personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively with their community, and thus made provision for such, including providing hands-on support and advisory services were requested to assist in setting an ethical tone and enable good governance through support to councillors to fulfill their oversight role. In terms of the local government integrity management framework, councillors have the responsibility for setting an ethical tone for the municipality and ensuring good governance through fulfilling their oversight role. Their work also requires them to make substantial discretionary decisions that will be based on their personal moral values and integrity. They thus have significant ethical responsibilities and frequently work in challenging ethical environments.
Minister, you need to wrap up.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I now recognize Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Speaker, will you just stop the clock so that the translation services can come online, as I would like to speak Afrikaans.
I'm sure we are ready all the time. Are we ready?
Kan jy my hoor in die taal van die keuse?
Can you confirm, honorable members, whether the translation is live?
Is daar vertaling?
It is live.
It's live.
Now you may proceed, honorable member.
Baie dankie. Agbare speaker, deur u aan die minister. Ek dink ons besef dat uiteindelik is plaaslike regering verantwoordelik vir 'n geweldige belangrike deel van dienslewering in Suid-Afrika. En dis my indruk dat baie van ons diensleweringsproteste hou ook direk verband met klagtes van inwoners oor 'n gebrek aan dienslewering op plaaslike vlak. En ek dink daarom sal almal in hierdie huis met my saamstem as ek sê, ons sal graag wil sien dat die beste mense moontlik hulle as raadslede of kandidate vir raadslidskap beskikbaar sal stel. Maar minister, soos wat u weet, is die posisie van 'n raadslid baie onseker. Daar is geen arbeidsbeskerming nie. Jy word maar vir 'n termyn van 5 jaar verkies. En soos wat ons nou vroeër vandag in hierdie huis gehoor het, stel jy jou hele lewe voor dat daar uiteindelik vir jou swart gesmeer kan word, dat daar karaktermoord op jou gepleeg kan word en so meer. Dis nie al mense wat kan sien om dit aan hulle self te laat doen nie. Maar soos wat u ook weet, minister, is daar 'n groot verskil in die vergoeding tussen die sogenaamde voltydse en deeltydse raadslede op plaaslike vlak. Maar die publiek verwag nie van jou om net 'n deeltydse raadslid te wees nie. Baie van u was waarskynlik self voorheen raadslede gewees. U weet, jy mag 'n deeltydse raadslid op papier wees, maar uiteindelik verwag die publiek van jou om 24 uur, 7 dae van die week aan diens te wees en om na hulle behoeftes om te sien. Wat meer is, in sommige gemeenskappe word daar selfs van raadslede verwag om hulp te verleen met elektrisiteitsaankope, die kostes van begrafnisse, vervoer na hospitale en so meer. En ons het al baie keer gesien dat dit eenvoudig vir raadslede onhoudbaar word om daar in hulle eie gemeenskappe, wat tog die ideaal is waar hulle moet bly, om daar te kan voortbestaan. En dan, speaker,
you need to wrap up, honorable member.
Dit is daarom 'n kommer vir my. En daarom sal ek graag van die minister wil vra om nog meer aandag te gee. Hoe kan ons sterker kandidate werf om uiteindelik hulle beskikbaar te stel vir byvoorbeeld die 2021 verkiesing en daarna. Dankie.
Thank you, Honorable van der Westhuizen. I now recognize Honorable Barnes.
Dankie, Speaker. Hierdie vraag is in geheel misplaas, omdat die LER vir plaaslike regering nie 'n indiensneming bureau is nie. Die LER se taak is om raadslede op te lei, te ondersteun en ook daardie raadslede te verwyder wat hul wangedra. Hy werf dood eenvoudig nie enige raadslede nie. Hulle word mos demokraties verkies. Die agbare lid van Bewesthuizen is nog nie lank met ons nie en lei aan verskeie illusies. Soos toe hy gister beswaar het dat lede van die publiek in hierdie wetgewer ook vrae aan departemente mag stel. Verder word plaaslike regeringsverkiesings nie dieselfde tyd as provinsiale verkiesings gehou nie. Hoe hierdie LER nou plaaslike regerings moet praat is vreemd, aangesien hy geen mandaat het om dit te doen nie. Hy het nie 'n toesigrol en mag nie inmeng nie. Bo alles is dit 'n ou lieflingsvraagie met soentjies en drukkies wat uitgedeel word. Knipoog mag gerus. Die agbare vraagsteller is duidelik nie tevrede met die omvang en gehalte van sy teenwoordigers as kandidaate nie. Miskien moet hy eerder by die DA se eie aansoekproses gaan beswaar maak teen die hordes kandidaate wat daar aanklop bloot om 'n pos te kry. Dankie, Speaker.
Siyabulela ke Majambas. Thank you, Honorable Member.
Meneer die Speaker, meneer ek is dankbaar om te sien dat ons kreunende sweetheart lid is terug in die huis. Ek dink dis my jammer dat ander partye nie die erns van hierdie vraag besef nie. Dat hulle nie besef hoe belangrik is dit dat ons die beste mense moet werf om uiteindelik in ons rade te dien nie. En ek glo daar's baie ook wat ons van hierdie kant af kan doen om uiteindelik te verseker dat meer mense hulle beskikbaar stel. Deur nie byvoorbeeld die karaktermoord op oud raadslede te pleeg wat ons vandag hier gesien het nie. Ons kan verder ook baie doen om te verseker dat raadslede en hulle gesinne nie bedreig word in hulle gemeenskappe nie. En die ironie is baie keer word daardie kwaad en verset teen stadsraadslede deur lede van ander politieke partye gestook. Dis onbillik dat die kinders en die vrouens van raadslede geïntimideer word. Dat kinders onveilig is wanneer hulle na hulle skole toe wil gaan en so meer. En dis alles aspekte waar nie net die minister nie, maar ook u as ons medelede in hierdie huis 'n groot bydrae kan lewer om die lewe vir ons plaaslike regeringsverteenwoordigers makliker te maak. Ons wil uiteindelik die beste spanne in die veld kan stoot sodat die beste diens aan ons gemeenskappe gelewer kan word. En is my jammer dat dit nie deur die oppositie erken word nie. Dankie voorsitter.
Baie dankie, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Minister. As I want to give you again, Premier.
Baie dankie, agbare Speaker en die agbare lede. Baie dankie vir die deelname aan die interpellasie. Die agbare Bans, moet ek eers om verskoning vra. My interpretasie vir hou jou mond was sagter as shut up, maar sy is korrek geweest. Dit is ook Google Translation. Die agbare Speaker, dit is 'n belangrike vraag. Ek dink as ons die vraag bietjie anders kan stel is dat aan die einde van 25 jaar van demokrasie het ons nog nie aan die voorkant gekom van die grootste ewels van die samelewing nie, onder andere armoede. En die vraag vir my is eintlik die politieke dispensasie waaronder ons werk. Wat moet daar binne verander om vir ons beter leierskap te gee aan die einde van die dag? As departement doen ons geweldig baie saam met ander departemente in opleiding. Ons investeer geweldig baie in opleiding. Maar dit is ook moeilik vir raadslede om raadslid te wees en deel te neem aan die opleiding. Ons het ook besef die risiko van 'n 5-jaar termyn en daarom is ons noem ons opleiding eintlik 'n sirkel van ontwikkeling. Met ander woorde, ons erken dat enige iemand wat die politieke veld betree kan van geen skoolopleiding hê tot doktorsgrade hê. So dis 'n sirkel van ontwikkeling. Jy kan by enige plek by die sirkel inkom en jy kan na 4 jaar as jy deur alles gaan, kan jy uitloop met 'n graad. So ons berei jou ook voor om 'n lewe buite die politiek te kan lei. Maar daar is geweldig druk en ek dink in 'n demokrasie het ons altyd gesê die kiezer kry wat hulle verdien. So dis 'n totale kopskuif dat ons moet stem vir mense wat werklik omgee en wat werklik 'n verskil kan maak in ons samelewing. Ek dink elke politieke party het hulle eie stelsel en sal hulle eie reëls moet ontwikkel sodat ons geskikte mense kry om die publiek daar buite te dien. Baie dankie.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That concludes the interpellations, honorable members. We are now moving to questions for oral reply. I now recognize the Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Chief Whip for the question. A, the reason for the intergovernmental dispute is the historic irrational resourcing methodology and model applied by SAPS, which has resulted in chronic under-resourcing of SAPS in the Western Cape. As was confirmed by, inter alia, the Public Service Commission's report on the aspect too, and coupled with the comprehensive failure of Minister Becky Cele to engage with us on these issues once they were raised with him. And as set out in my officer's letters to Minister Cele dated 10 October 2018 and 25 April 2019, copies of which can gladly be made available to the honourable member should you want to read them. B, the parties are currently engaged in an engagement and mediation process to see if the issue can be resolved, i.e. in a manner that does not involve court appearances. And it is only if this process fails to produce a result that the court action can and will be pursued. Our officials at DOCS, along with legal services and the State Attorney, are now engaged in that process, and as such, no budget allocation for litigation purposes has been necessary as yet. And then C, the outcome we seek, either via mediation or engagement, alternatively via a court of law, is that SAPS will produce and be held to the application of the National Resource Allocation Plan and methodology for resourcing in this province, which model takes into account the current crime we face and the effects of the historical under-resourcing, and adopts a more holistic approach going forward, which will result in a more visible, better resourced police force in this province, and as a consequence, a reduction in crime.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. Is there any follow-up question? None. Thank you, honorable members. The next question is to the Minister of Community Safety. I recognize the Minister.
Of course. Mr. Speaker, the annual general meeting directives will be issued by the by me, the Minister of Community Safety, after concurrence by the Western Cape Provincial Commissioner of SAPS. The Minister, me, is required to do so in terms of Section 19, 20, and 21 of the South African Police Act of Act 68 of 95, read with Section 3F and 5 of the Western Cape Community Safety Act of 2013. The directives and guidelines set out in the said document have been developed to guide the election process and to ensure that it is transparent and free and fair. The department consulted with the National Civilian Secretariat for the Police Services, the Independent Electoral Commission, the Provincial CPF Board and the Board Executive, and the SAPS Provincial Office when drafting the directives. Furthermore, advertisements have been placed in 80 community newspapers to announce the AGM process and to afford organizations the opportunity to register for the upcoming elective AGMs as per the directives. A task team comprising members of the Western Cape SAPS Provincial Office, the Department of Community Safety, that's DOCS, has been established to oversee the election process and to see to it that all AGMs are compliant with the directives and the Uniform Constitution for CPFs, the 2010 and general election practices. The DOCS official that will assist with the meetings have been trained and are currently engaged with the local SAP station commanders on suitable dates of the election. The B part of the question, yes, the department will facilitate CPF board elections to minimize disputes that arise as a result of flawed procedures before and at these elections. Designated DOCS officials have been allocated to all local CPF areas in the province. DOCS will facilitate the compilation and finalization of the list of organization and the voters' roll, and this will be provided to the SAP station commanders in order for them to invite all these organizations to the AGM. And I want to add, we will almost have also a kind of quality assurance process around that invitations, because we don't want station commanders to invite selectively who they wish to. So we will have some kind of things. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now recognize any member who wishes to have a supplementary question. Thank you. Honorable Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Which Murray? Sorry.
Oh, Honorable P. Murray.
Sorry, family member. Minister, the question I want to ask you, the police forum, what have you got in mind to make them more relevant? People are struggling times. How can the police forums be trained to do that function? Help with the compilation of an affidavit, or help with advice for rape victims, and then accompany these people who have complaints to the police station to make sure they get the proper attention.
Honorable Murray, will you please take your seat? There's a point of order. Is that a point of order, Honorable?
It's just,
Misha?
I just need to understand, Speaker, what the channel is for Afrikaans, because I would really like to hear the contribution in Afrikaans.
There's no answer for stupidity, Mr. Chair.
Honourable Speaker, that that is unparliamentary.
Order, honourable members.
And I have a right to listen to the contribution in the language of my choice, and I want to hear it in Afrikaans.
Afrikaans is channel number 2. Channel number 2, and English is channel number 6, and Isixhosa is channel number 4. Are you picking it up, honorable member? Unless they changed it last night. Okay. All right, thank you.
Sir, I think we also need to make sure of the caliber of the MPs, not only local government, to prepare them for the elections next year. Mr. Chairman, can I
recognize
continue?
the Honorable Peter Murray to continue.
Yes. I just want to know what's, Minister, and I know you are very energetic in completing your task, what can we do to empower police forums? They can play a more substantial role in assisting the communities.
I recognize the Minister. Thank you, Honorable Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I think thanks to the Honorable Murray for that question, because I think it's a very, very a good question in my opinion. And I think one of the issues is exactly that we are busy. I just want to make this comment that 98% of CPFs at police station level get that kind of support, get also the funding for that. I think it's at higher levels where, board level, where there's a bit of a breakdown in the kind of cooperation. But I want to say, remember there's a very clear, in terms of the law, clear functions for CPFs. They're the link between communities and the police. And I think we really need to make that channel of communication far more open through training. I think it's an excellent idea. We remember we have our civil servants doing affidavits at police station on a voluntary basis. They can really empower some of the community police forum people to start train them in doing affidavits. So the police can go do policing outside, boots on the ground type of thing. I really would take that up and to see how we can implement that in a very practical way to what you suggested. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Is there a point of order, Chief Whip? All right, I've got a number of follow-ups. Initially, there was none. Maybe the minister said something that made members too, and obviously, Honorable Peter Murray. I've got Honorable Kama, Honorable Christians, and then the Chief Whip. I'm sure the Chief Whip can negotiate with Honorable Allen. But let me recognize now Honorable Kama.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank the MEC for the answers. What I want to understand, Speaker, is are there any measures, for the lack of the better word, to ensure that, you know, there's an election when the term elapses, so that there's not a period like now of 3 months where we're told that CPFs can't participate in there. Because I think the idea of having this and us agreeing that the component of community participating in safety, in fighting crime is very important. So are there measures in place to ensure that continuously, when the term is about to end, an election is held, and then, thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kama. I recognize, yeah, my apologies. Remember, Honorable Minister, there was none earlier. I recognize the Minister. Thank you.
The whole issue around, you remember, we are now, it expires 9 September. But the period September, October, November, because of the many kind of station level community police forums, therefore it spread over to, we're trying to finish it. We will try hard to finish it by end of September and October, end of October. And if we need be, we will go into November. But I think that's a very good point. They are still functioning, but it will end, the term will end, and by law, not by design, by law. I just carry out the law as it is, you know, Mr. Kaba, Honorable Kaba. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now recognize Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Just a question. We heard over a period of time that there's a lot of fights within police community forums. Now, their job is to ensure the effectiveness of the police, accountability, but also to look at safety problems. What is the Minister ensuring, his department ensuring, that we have people there that will serve in the interest of the community to solve crime? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Christians. I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. Again, a very, very constructive question. I think one of the issues that we've built in now is also the issue of vetting. And therefore, people must get onto the voters' roll, so that because we have found, Mr. Christians, Honorable Christians, that there were a number of people with criminal records and serious criminal records in many of the CPFs. And that will now help to get really vetted people. Also people working with the instead of working with the police, they work with the gangs. So just to get that out. So I must say we have a very, very, a unit that's really working hard at making sure that, and making sure that the stuff is accredited. And I'm talking about even the processes through the IC, through WhatsApps, everyone is on board. So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I recognize Honorable Allen.
The Minister, the CPFs have been operating under interim regulations for the last approximately 15 years. Has the Minister, the National Minister, made any formal regulations regarding the functioning of CPFs?
Thank you, Honorable Allen. I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are still constantly talking around it, and I must say there's a whole lot of progress. You know, it's so, when I think in 2010, remember we didn't have one committee that the docs chaired in this province on the priority, and remember CPFs and all of that forms part of that, the priority committees. We now chair 3 of those committees, so I think that's part of that all the time, good cooperation and getting cooperation, working to cooperation with the police and with the provincial police services, but also the national police services. So thank you for that question. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question is by Honorable Allen to the Honorable Minister of Arts, Cultural Affairs and Sports. Now, the Minister is Honorable A. Murray.
Baie dankie agbare Ellen vir die vraag. Die Netbal Wêreldbeker in 2023 gaan die grootste vrouesportbyeenkoms ter wêreld wees wat op Afrika bodem aangebied word en is ook die eerste vir Afrika. Kaapstad gaan as die gasheerstad optree vir die geleentheid. Die poging om die Netbal Wêreldbeker aan te bied was 'n samewerkingspoging van die stad Kaapstad, Netbal Suid-Afrika, die nasionale en provinsiale regering en in hierdie geval die Wes-Kaap regering. Die Departement van Kultuursake en Sport het 'n instrumentele rol gespeel in die voorbereiding van die bod wat ingedien is vir die aanbieding van die Netbal skouspel in Singapore in November 2018. Die bod het baie toewyding van al die regeringsdepartemente behels om dit wat Kaapstad aan die wêreld kan lewer aan te bied. Die bod het ons wêreldklas fasiliteite, infrastruktuur en kundigheid in die aanbied van groot internasionale byeenkomste op dieselfde manier tentoongestel as wat ons die sokker wêreldbeker in 2010 suksesvol aangebied het. Die Departement van Kultuursake en Sport gaan 'n sleutelrol speel in die aanbieding van die Netbal Wêreldbeker. Die departement gaan die geleentheid gebruik om onder meer vrouesport te bevorder en om die profiel van netbal te verhoog. Sy gaan ook help met die operasionele en logistieke vereistes van die Wêreldbeker. Die finale verduideliking van die spesifieke rol wat die departement moet vervul, gaan in die volgende periode voor die Netbal Wêreldbeker in 2023 uitgespel en bepaal word. Dankie.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now recognize a member that wants to have a follow-up. Honorable Allen, Honorable Kama, and Honorable Christians in that order.
Thank you to the Minister. If you can briefly give your view with regard to the three spheres of government working together in order to secure this and how you see that the benefit of government working together across all three spheres of government.
In hierdie geval het die stad Kaapstad, nasionaal en provinsiale regerings baie goed saamgewerk om die wêreldbeker vir ons te verseker, soos ons nou gesê het in 2023. En ek dink die voordeel daarvan is dat ons, as ons op verskillende vlakke van regering of sfere van regering saamwerk, kan ons nasiebou verseker, ons kan definitief alle diverse kulture byeenbring en dan ook wys dat ons al verskil ons in politiek en kulturele verskille kan saamwerk om iets groots vir Suid-Afrika en spesifiek vir stad Kaapstad teweeg te bring.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I recognize Honorable Kama.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is around, I want to check what will the department do to ensure that the legacy of this World Cup will not only be seen through business people who will make profits, but actually through the eyes of the netball players themselves, even in different communities, because we have heard, I think, even the Netball Federation in the Western Cape complaining about facilities, and that already a proposal is that they're going to have temporary courts for the World Cup. So it means that that is not a permanent thing, but we'd love to see where there are new courts that are built so that we see young people in Mitchells playing netball, having facilities to play after the World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Kama. I recognize the Minister.
Baie dankie. Ons het reeds van die wêreldklas fasiliteite in die stad Kaapstad gevestig en ons brei dit uit en ons het ook reeds netbalbane, dit is nie tydelike netbalbane nie, in Bredasdorp, Bosselbaai, Hartenbos en Mamasbury gebou en gevestig en ons beplan om dit verder uit te rol sodat dat ons vrouesport, veral ons netbalsport, uitgebrei word tot in die verste uithoeke van die Wes-Kaap.
Order, honorable members. I've got the other member who wants to say something. I think I'm going to give Honorable Christians and then Honorable Murray. Honorable Peter Murray will be the last one. Yes. Honorable
See, I am
Christians.
next. You said I'm next. So come
No,
and
you
then
are
but-
on the
okay.
platform now.
No problem. Speaker, it's a major event. Did the Minister and the Department, is their projected budget? And also, are they speaking to the safety issues? Because we want the influx of people, but people want to come if they know their safety plans. So did the department communicate about the projected budget and also the safety of the tourists that will come to the country?
Thank you, Honorable Christians. The Minister.
Baie dankie. In ons aanbod het ons spesifiek die begroting aangespreek, sowel as die veiligheidsissues en toe veiligheidskwessies. En toe ons nou onlangs in Liverpool was vir die Wêreldbeker toernooi daar, was dit spesifiek gevra oor die veiligheidsaspekte. Ons het dit aangespreek en ons ook 'n plan uitgelê vir hoe ons dit gaan benader na 2023 toe en ook tydens die Wêreldbeker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I recognize Honorable Murray, T. Murray.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, I want to just plant an idea with you on the netball issue. We have very changing weather patterns, and I've had requests. Our municipal halls stand there as white elephants. People don't use it anymore because we used to watch television. Can you assist in helping them through the municipalities to create indoor netball facilities? The halls are big enough, and the girls want to play inside under cover, so even if it rains, they can practice inside these halls. Don't need a big court. I want you to consider it. I have told them I will bring it to Parliament. Indoor netball, indoor five-a-side soccer for the municipal halls in black and colored areas that stands there as white elephants. Nobody uses it anymore. Sorry for the term white, sir, but I heard of blacklisted, so I don't think it's a problem.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I recognize the Minister.
Baie dankie, agbare Marie. Dit is in ons gesprek met die stad en die verskillende munisipaliteite, maar soos jy weet, fasiliteite is 'n primêre munisipale verantwoordelikheid, maar ons is in gesprek om dit aan te spreek.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That concludes this question. We will now go to question number 5. Honorable Mvimbi is aware of number 4. We dealt with this, Chief Whip dealt with that earlier. The Chief Whip of the Opposition, I recognize you, Madam.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm rising, maybe I want to put it as a point of privilege. During the members' induction in 2014, we were told that in the House we may not wear party political regalia. I'm bringing this to your attention because Member Maseko is wearing either a dress or a skirt, but she's got a party political regalia. Can you roll on it, Chair? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable the Chief Whip of the Opposition. I recognize the Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, you'll be well aware that Honourable Maseko was representing the DA at the NCOP, in which members were asked to wear party regalia as part of the event, and she's come directly from there, and as you can see, she has made an attempt by wearing her WCPP jacket to rectify the situation, but given that that event from the other side was delayed, I think that we should be understanding in this regard.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip, for that explanation. What I want to state here for the honorable members, for the record, in response to the point of order raised by other honorable members, order, I will make this exception given this explanation. But I would like to ask the honorable members to help the presiding officers to preside in an environment where we don't make it difficult to have a smooth operation of the House. It is correct that members should not wear party regalia in here. And because of the sitting, which I agreed to the NCOP that because they said to us it is the same day today as we sit here. Other members have submitted apologies because they could not be here on time, and therefore they are not present here today. If another member were to arrive here in the same environment, I would give the same ruling. So I would like the House to accept my plea and my humble request that it is an exception to the rule, given the circumstances that have been raised by the Chief Whip. Am I getting the House, approval in that regard? Honorable Chief Whip of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I address you precisely on this point? I'm worried that your request will lead us into unprecedented behavior by members of this House. If I go to any event, party, political, or parliament, I must have a spare set of clothing, because when I come here, I know what is expected out of me as a member. Now, I really want to accept your ruling, but I find it difficult because we all know that when we come here, we just can't wear party political. There's EFF, they wear red. Some of the members of the DA wear blue, I wear green sometimes, but it just can't be acceptable, Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable the Chief Whip of the Opposition. I recognize the Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, is it even visible? It's the lower part of her outfit that is behind the bench that is not visible. So I don't really understand what the issue is. And then is the Chief Whip of the Opposition asking that our member be removed from the chamber as a result? Is that the request? Just to get clarity. Because if that is so, then that is your decision to make then.
May I request, remember, I'm really at pains to say this. When rules are made, they are made to be adhered to. And if there is something that we all agree upon, and there is something that makes us believe that there is, by any means, willfully or otherwise, one of the rules is being infringed upon. So I'm going to request that that determination be done by the Chief Whip of the official opposition and the Chief Whip. And if you want to discuss this further, because it's a dicey one for the presiding officer here, please, Chief Whip, allow me to conclude this. The situation now is as is, and you've asked the question to the Chief Whip of the Opposition, whether she would like the member to leave because of that purposes, whether the Speaker must make that ruling. Honorable the Chief Whip, what is your expression?
Thank you. I would have a different proposal, and that is for Member Maseko to cover or get a lappy or something to cover the skirt. I cannot really say she must leave the house, but she must find something to cover everything that is party political. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable the Chief Whip of the Opposition. Honorable Chief Whip.
Exactly says that this is not permissible.
Now you're making it difficult. Honorable Chief Whip, there is a convention. Can I please be allowed to preside? There is a convention. And I'm not allowing now any further debate on this matter. There is a convention, and the convention is that we must come here in a way that respects the decorum of the House. And that is our dress code must be consistent with that understanding that there's a particular decorum. I cannot point a particular rule and say, this rule says you must dress white, you must dress red. But I think in this case, it's clear your question, Honorable Chief Whip. The request is not for Honorable Member to leave. It's just for the Honorable Member to cover what she can. Are we happy that the Honorable Member is covered? It seems the Honorable Member is now fine. May we now proceed? Honorable Minister Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just, in terms of reflection, the Honourable Lecker is indeed correct about the convention, because there was a day when she came in with the ANC logo and she covered it up very quickly, and we continued and proceeded. So I think you're being fair in this case. The cover-up was as intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Fernandez. Honorable members, thank you. Order. Order, honorable members. Thank you. All right. I now recognize the question was asked by Honorable Pimaran to, where are we now? To Honorable Fritz, am I correct? Yes. And that I recognize the Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of the Honourable Moran, yes, there is a national rural safety plan which was drafted by the South African Police Services as well as a provincial response to the national rural safety plan. The provincial response plan is being updated due to the nature and escalation or the escalating frequency of attacks on rural communities. And I want to emphasize it's attacks on everyone, this is not a response to farmers being attacked, everyone, ordinary workers on farms and in rural communities also. And it's also mindful of the devastating effect that such attacks have on food security and the Western Cape economy. Under the leadership of Minister Ivan Meyer, we have agreed with the key role players on the establishment of an interministerial committee on rural safety, as well as a technical committee on the rural safety, which will be linked to the existing structures of the joint operations and intelligence forums within the criminal justice cluster departments, most noticeably SAPS, the MPA Correctional Services, and the State Security Agency. 5 million was transferred to the district municipalities as part of an envisaged safety improvement plan, including but not exclusively rural safety, because it also deals with those towns, those rural towns. The money is transferred in support of specific deliverables and are aligned to the safety strategy of the province, and in particular for each district municipality to develop through a prescribed process of broad consultations on policing needs and priorities, a safety plan at municipal level to establish a district safety forum inclusive of the criminal justice cluster departments. And that includes the MPA, Correctional Services, Home Affairs, Justice, and SAPS. And lastly, to create capacity at district level to deal with the evolving crime patterns and risk. Rural safety is an integral part of safety within all our districts, with specific focus on those most vulnerable, such as unemployed youth, farm workers, and people living in areas which are far remote from emergency services, often with little or no reliable channels of communications. The funds which were transferred to the district municipalities last year are going forward and are guided by specific conditions and requirements.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Are there any members? I recognize Honorable Peter Murray, followed by Honorable Kama.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, in the light of the fact that we have not yet appointed a provincial police commissioner, how effective is your plan? Because your plan must go via the provincial commissioner to the national commissioner, to the national police minister, and you broke the chain of command by not appointing a provincial police commissioner. How is this affecting the finalization of your strategy?
Honorable Minister.
I'm so happy to announce and to inform the honourable member, Mr. P. Murray, that we have systems also in place. So systems don't evolve around individuals. And what is very good, I must say, Mr. Honourable Murray, the acting General Mfazi is
Honorable
really...
Minister, will you please talk to the speaker?
Excuse me, sir?
Will you please talk through the speaker?
Oh, but yeah, but I'm just looking at him. I'm
I
speaking
don't
to
do
you.
that.
I'm just...
I don't want to
Okay.
fight fist here.
Okay, no, thanks, Mr. So I must also, yeah, let me look at the speaker. But Mr. Murray, I'm speaking to you. So, the provincial commissioner, Commissioner General Mfazi is really a person with a lot of energy and wanting to get things done, and is working very well with us. So we're very happy that that chain of command hasn't broken. It's there, and we hope to appoint very soon. The provincial commissioner for the province.
Thank
we, Honourable, you heard right. We. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you for doing that. I recognize Honorable Kama, followed by Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, in the committee last week, we got a briefing from the department on its program on PNPs. One of the challenges that the department listed was that in developing the safety plans, they have lack of mechanisms to ensure that the PNPs find expression in those safety plans that are created in the municipalities. Now the question would be, what is the department or the minister doing to ensure that we develop these mechanisms? Because I fear a situation where we put money and we realize that in turn it does not address what we have identified in our PNPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kama. Honorable Minister.
To give the member the assurance that, in fact, from where we stand, the PMPs are the most important kind of, consultative program with people on the ground to inform our safety plans. So I want to give you that assurance that we will get those mechanisms right. Unfortunately, as you know, sometimes in departments, people work for 100 years in the department. They sometimes can't think beyond some certain level. So we will get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I recognize Honorable van der Westhuizen.
Achtbare Speaker, deur u aan die minister. Minister, die staande komitee op landbou, omgewingsake en ontwikkelingsbeplanning het 2 weke gelede verneem dat daar 'n konsep landelike veiligheidsplan is wat opgestel is deur die Suid-Afrikaanse Polisiediens. Maar dat hierdie plan so gebrekkig is, so swak is dat dit eintlik 'n genade is dat dit nog nie op nasionale vlak deur die polisiebestuur goedgekeur is nie. Het u al insaag in hierdie plan kon kry en deel u daardie sentiment dat daardie plan aansienlike hersiening nodig het voordat dit hopelik later deur die polisiebestuur aanvaar sal word?
Thank you very much. I see you.
Deputy Speaker. Ja, ek wil vir die achtbare Andrika sê dat dit is presies die doel van die tegniese komitee wat gedryf word deur die landbou departement en met die veiligheidsdepartement, departement van gemeenskapsveiligheid, om juist daai tekortkominge in daardie nasionale plan na te kyk, maar ook om iets wat te ontwikkel wat uniek is in hierdie provinsie. En ek dink dit is inderdaad van die hoofdoele van hulle punt van die program.
Thank you, Minister. I think we have time, one more question relating to the Minister. No? Okay, thank you. Then, sorry, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd just like to ask the MEC that in regard to the recent tragic murder that happened in Stellenbosch, is he, which has to do with the issue of rural safety, is he aware of correspondence sent by the deceased to both Premier Zille as well as MEC Bradell, requesting that fencing be provided at that particular property?
No, I'm not aware.
Thank you. We're moving on to the next question. I think we're moving on to question 7. Question? So, I recognise the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I neglected to inform the House that the question to Minister Mayer will stand over with the concurrence of Honourable Moran.
Noted. Thank you. So, question 7 is correct. I see the Minister. Ministers, yes, I recognise the Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Lilly, the landowner has instituted legal proceedings for the eviction of the illegal occupants. In terms of the court's ruling, the City of Cape Town was required to provide basic services. The City is appealing the court's decision and the matter is currently with the Supreme Court under litigation. But meanwhile, the City has provided the settlement with the following services: 376 container toilets, 840 portable flush toilets and 146 steps. The City has also installed 1 mast light. Delays in the installation of the remaining 4 lights has occurred due to the unwillingness of the occupants to relocate from the road reserve to elsewhere within the settlement in order for the lighting to be installed.
I recognise you, Honourable Member. Sorry, just before you go on, I'm looking for Member Lilly, but he's not here. So I'm going to give then, because I normally give precedence to the person who posed the question, I then see you, Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to ask the Minister if this is now going to be the standard for all informal settlements, or whether we will have to bring every week a different informal settlement that need lights. Is this going to be a general policy? Or is she just putting ointment on one sore and not on the rash? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Member Marie. Although the question was actually supposed to be answered by the City of Cape Town, I've thought it fit to actually answer the member and give him the proper details. So I don't believe this will be a norm. Thank you.
Any follow-ups? No. Member Murray.
Speaker, we expect to have a cabinet, and a cabinet take decisions as a cabinet, and they come here fully prepared because they get direction from the leader of the cabinet. I don't know why you can't answer the question. What is the policy? Are you going to put these eyemarks at all informal settlements to protect people? Or is it only this one that you would consider? That's the question.
Minister.
Die wil my in Afrikaans verduidelik en antwoord, dan verstaan jy my dalk 'n bietjie beter. Eerstens, die konteks van hierdie vraag is vir die stad Kaapstad. Ek het hierdie inligting vir die stad Kaapstad verkry. So ek beantwoord die vraag eintlik want hierdie is 'n plaaslike regeringssweer saak want die area waarna die lid verwys, Marikana, val onder die stad Kaapstad. Waar die tendenses in die stad Kaapstad is waar hulle kan, doen hulle dit. So ek gee vir julle antwoord gebaseer op wat die stad Kaapstad doen. Ek dink dit is meer omsigtelik wat ek nou tans gedoen het. Dankie.
Thank you. Yes, I see you, Honourable Member.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, I don't think the question of Mr. Marais has been answered. It's very simple. Is what has been done, what has been asked is that, is it going to be done in all the municipalities in the province? us to the minister. And he's sidestepping it and telling us about the city of Cape Town. The plan, is it going to be done in the whole province? The province is not the city of Cape Town.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. It's not for me to make sure that the ministers answer questions to what you think, the degree you must think that you want to hear, but I'm going to give an opportunity again for the minister to respond to the question asked again.
Deputy Speaker, I can't tell local government spheres how they handle their informal settlements. There are other informal settlements across the province which deals with their informal settlements differently. It depends on the policy that they have in place. I would encourage the member to actually empower himself and get a copy of all 30 bylaws and policies of councils. Thank you.
If there's another opportunity, I see Honourable Member Sayed.
Deputy Speaker, thank you. Can the provincial minister then please tell us what is his role in terms of oversight? Because it seems as if the manner in which he's answering that particular question, he's saying municipalities must do as they please, and he's not going to have anything to say about that. Surely human settlements informs and gives guidance to municipalities in terms of how to handle housing issues.
Minister.
Deputy Speaker, I will advise the member to affirm himself with norms and standards, and then he can ask that question again, because I believe he needs to equip himself with how local government works. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of that question. We move on to question 8. Honourable Minister Fritz.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And if we can get some attention in the House.
Order.
Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Thank you to the Honourable Kama for the question. And I think it's one of those very interesting questions, because I think watching briefs must be used far more, and it can really be effective. And so the sub-program Safety Partnership contributed significantly to the prevention of crimes and the improvement of safety in communities, to the creation of more than 1,000 temporary work opportunities to youth in communities through the Extended Public Works program. In addition, a total of 581 youth from vulnerable communities graduated from the Chrysalis Academy last year alone. All these graduates were placed in a work opportunity for 12 months. The department partnered with 225 religious organizations to keep young children off the streets during the June and December school holidays. A total of 25,526 youth and young children were reached in 41 areas in the province. The sub-program also managed the agreement with the City of Cape Town to improve safety at schools, improve safety at 52 priority schools. So you will see a question from by the Minister of Education later, where we will see those totals, the total number of school resource officers. We give 52 of those to the department. The department funds 16 priority schools, and through this agreement, 2 school resource officers are placed at schools to improve safety for learners. I can also just say right now, we have in a number of schools about 150 young unemployed youth that were just hanging around at home. They are now safety ambassadors to augment and to support teachers in overcrowded classes in schools in Manenberg, in Mitchell's Plain, in Nyanga, and in Khayelitsha. The sub-program is responsible for community engagements through which the department engages and partners with communities on issues of safety. Some of the recent events held were, among others, a workshop in Athlone for the Extended Public Youth Workers, a meeting with neighborhood watch structures, and religious organizations, and Women's Month events we had in Tulbagh and in Mitchell's Plain, where Honourable Allen really entertained the women in a very, very proactive way. The court watching brief aims to contribute to the monitoring of police conduct, as well as overseeing the effectiveness and efficiency of police services as per Section 206 of subsection 3A and B of the Constitution. The outcome is to contribute to a more professional police service. The methodology is to report on serious criminal cases that have been scrapped from the court roll as a result of SAP's inefficiencies. The courts observed The courts observed include areas where gangs are active. Having a more professional police will lead to more effective and efficient investigations in gang areas, which will result in more gang members and criminals to be removed from streets and thereby creating safer communities. I just want to say there's a case this morning we read in all in the papers of the 57-year-old man who allegedly raped a baby of, I think, 14 months. Now, that case we're going to take out a watching brief because that man was released on, the case was withdrawn owing to a lack of evidence. Now, that's one of the typical cases that we need to take out a watching brief to make sure that there are no other issues around in that case. In the previous financial year, the court watching brief program dealt with 3,269 matters in 37 courts across the province. Reports are submitted to SAPS on a quarterly basis, and corrective actions taken by SAPS are, SAPS management. And I must say to you, the MPA really works very well with us because they can see the problems around sometimes investigations and the quality of the information in the docket. So it's a very good program. Thank you, Mr. Kama.
Thank you. Honourable Member Kama.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the MEC for the answer. From the onset, Speaker, I want to also agree in terms of the court watching briefs. What I want to understand then, Chair, in terms of the other safety partnerships that we have, what mechanisms, because I don't want the department to be viewed now as an employment agency. We can't claim that we've recruited so many people and therefore are making an impact on crime. But now I want to check what mechanisms are there, because our impact should be measured on the change in the crime scene. Now, what impacts are there to ensure, to measure the partnerships and the impact they have on the crime scene? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Always give this honourable member a compliment, but that's an excellent question. And I think when we talk about the type of questions, we also want to see how does what the honourable member is asking feed into the broader issue around the crime and the safety narrative. And I want to say, Honourable Kama, remember our point of departure is a provincial safety plan. Then we break it into regions, into districts, and then from district, even right down to the ward. So when the councillor phones me to say, oh, you know, this happened, I ask, what is your safety plan? Now, in that ward and in the region, we have all these different mechanisms feeding into making it a safer. Now, let me give you a practical example. And I'm going to give two practical examples. The one was, remember the long weekend of the 9th, when all these middle-class people came back from their holiday homes. They drove over that big, not the Twitch Club, the other one, Salori's Pass. And as they came down, there were huge congestion with traffic, and cars were stoned. But there was a dispute with a piece of land. That was the issue. And we then had a meeting, and we tried to find out why were people's cars, stoned. And we were assisted by a group of ordinary mediators, ordinary men and women, but they like CPF chairperson in the other side in Grabouw. They came over the mountain to assist, and we set up a mediation group. We also looked at the policing part of that. I think that's the question the honourable member is asking. And I can tell you, since those interventions, but I want to emphasize, we had to go to the community that was throwing the stones. We came, spoke to them, and I can tell you it stopped right up to today, since the 9th, that weekend of the 9th. And so that's one, it's called the N2. We're now going to try and extend that right to the airport, working with those communities along the N2. At the moment, it's right up to Macassar. We want to take it right down to Borchard's Quarry. I think someone asked something about Borchard's Quarry last week, right to the bottom. The second example I just want to use, about 4 weeks ago, we had very big issues at Malibu High. Now, I just want to show the way we work in a collaborative way with our partners, the Honourable Debbie Schaefer next to me, and how, when we went in with the SGB, with the surrounding communities, neighborhood watches, with the CPF, all of them going into the school, because there were knives running around and people, you know, and we discovered that the systems were not, the department got it, but it wasn't implemented. There's also a safety officer at that place, at that school appointed. I can tell you my colleague Wade Seal went in, did a whole lot of the mediation, and all the kind of way that whole program was turned around, it's just very, very interesting. So I want to, Honorable Kama, to say, Deputy Speaker, it's all those pockets of interventions that I can't mention here that we're not even aware of, where communities really become part of the solution. That is not us doing anything for the community with us. We are trying to get to solutions. So I just want to make that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I see the ACDP. Sir.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Minister mentioned there's 37 court watching briefs. I want to know, is there going to be extension or rollout to other communities where it's needed? And how the court watching briefs, when do they leave the case? Do they follow it to conviction? Do they get conviction rates? How does that work? Because you put in resources, you want some results. How do they work when it comes to convictions and those type of things? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. I think, again, a very good question. And I hate to say to the opposition, these are good questions, but I think that's your point. Thank you, Honorable Marie.
Order.
So I just want to say that's almost the purpose of the where a case is genuinely not, where you're not capable of getting a conviction, but the success rate of the watching briefs is something like 85%. It's a very high success rate. And if I say success rate, I don't think one wants to crucify and convict people who's not guilty, where people were guilty. We want, it's already throughout. Some of those advocates drive right down to Beaufort West. Honorable Dylan would really, Mitchell would really appreciate that, to deal now with that case of that rape and murder of that young woman in Beaufort West. So that will happen to my colleague also on the opposite side. So it's really, and in fact, we must extend and expand, but we don't want to create a parallel justice system. But I want to say at this point, we're working very well with the MPA. Thank you, Honorable Christians.
I saw the member Mkondlu, and then I see the DA after that. Oh, sorry?
Just the first, because the minister didn't get the first part of the question. 37 watching briefs, the extension, where is it going to extend to needy communities where it's needed? To say, I think we really want to make sure that every community gets that assistance. It's not certain communities. And let me give you a practical example. There was a murder in Kensington, in Frankton, about 3-4 years ago. The mother is really very, very still traumatized about it. And it's like working class people who can't afford lawyers. They've gone to the police station. They didn't get the kind of support that they're supposed to get. I want to tell you, yesterday we took out a watching brief on that case to extend to all our communities, and so for specifically where people can't afford legal representation, to see that justice is served and that parents can get closure for children who are killed in crime. So thank you very much for the question.
Member Nkondlo, and then Member McKenzie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let me see, you are on fire today, I can see. Look, the three programs that you are referring to, and I'm saying the three programs that the MEC is referring to, and the positive success rate. Now, my interest is, how do communities get into the programs? Because I see you saying here communities where gangs are active. So how do you identify those communities, and how do they get into the program? And I'm asking this, Deputy Speaker, specifically because this morning on the ETV, I mean, almost 2 women from Pontyville around the issue of the effects, or whether the impact of the army has worked in that community. One of the things, I mean, they were raising was the fact that they are running programs on their own, which government does not support. Secondly, politicians are not even there, you know, in the program. So part of what is realizing change in those communities is activities that are done by communities themselves. So if you talk about safety partnerships, I'm not sure is this thing happening in Bonteheuwel? And if so, why such communities not feeling it? And lastly, MEC, in Guguletu, for example, there's a serious problem of school kids between the ages of 8 to 15 that are smoking dacha, that are fighting amongst themselves, closing others. So I'm trying to understand, where is this program, or how do people access the program? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let me start, and Honourable, thank you, Honourable Kondo, for the question, because I also want to say Bonteheuwel is such a contested area. I don't honestly, but I'll give you some just stats. Remember, since the deployment of those very boots, unemployed young men and women who were trained into law enforcement, since that deployment into the area, I think it's about 2.5, it's now about almost 2 months. There was only one, now you know, to say only one death it sounds so horrible, but genuinely there was, you know, it used to be 46 for the preceding months, one death. Now, we must also, as the Department of Community Safety, start with ourselves, our own structures, and have faith, as the Honourable Kama will inform you, that the neighbourhood watches is our first priority to work with in those programs. And I've recently launched the uniform kind of approach of neighbourhood watch, where they all wear the same kind of. So when you're in Beaufort West and you see a guy walk down the road with that type of regalia, you know it's a neighbourhood watch guy. When you go into Worcester, you will see 3 people walking with those. It is a neighbourhood watch guy. And it was it was successfully launched. So that's our first group of own people that we need to work with. And we urge other people who work in the safety space to join up now. I know the 2 ladies very well, you know, as Cameron Dagmo will tell you, they're former comrades of mine. But now they have their own contestation. They have their own contestation around the space in Bonteheuwel. But we would still urge to work with everyone who's working in that space. The second one is our CPFs, to work with our CPFs. And again, that's our program. It's our own, you know. And I'm saying to extend that even to work with some of our ratepayers and civic associations. Remember in the 80s, in the height of times when we were resisting the apartheid government, that you had strong civic organizations, and gangsters were gone because they're cowards. You know, when we organized and strongly organized in civic formations, gangsters are cowards, they disappear. And I think what we try to do here, again, is to use the kind of statutory, legitimate structures to work through. Unfortunately, we can't fund, you know, we're not other departments like the social development who fund MPOs. We can only fund those organizations that's in terms of the law that we have to work with. But we will all the time work with everyone, as long as we have a safety kind of objective, a safety you know, point of departure, to make sure every single, from the old lady in our home, you know, who's 82 years old, to the young child of 6 years old, to the youth who will unfortunately become a gangster. We must save him from becoming a gangster. And we must really give him an opportunity so that he can become just an amazing young person with his app and developing a new app in Bonteheuwel or in Hanover Park. Because it's just not in Constantia where people have brains, everywhere people have brains. So I think that's the point I want to make. But thanks for that question. Just to clarify, statutory organizations are our first priority. And we, unfortunately, you know, we must have a very small budget. I've came to ask for some, what they call in Afrikaans, kanala money. You know, kanala money, a little bit extra. Say, the honourable member at the back will tell you. But we haven't received anything from the honourable member there at the back. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. Honourable Member Mackenzie, final question.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Minister, for the feedback on the Watching Beef program. Minister, if you could just share with us the process, and I know that Member Christians talked about the expansion of the program. For example, we were in Laingsburg the last 2 days, and there was a very heart-breaking case of a member of the public that raised the matter on a case that just seemed to be going nowhere. And I think that the members of the committee and the members in that cluster have raised that this matter should perhaps be part of the Watching Bruce. What is the process and how do we inform communities, particularly in outlying areas like Laingsburg, and I'm sure if we go further, there's many more of these cases going to come up on the Watching Bruce so that they can get closure and feedback what's happening with the cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Mackenzie. I'm also heartened to say we have very young, dynamic constituency heads on all sides of the house. And I really want to urge constituency heads in small places like Beaufort West, like Laingsburg, like Kanaland, Kanaland, to ask them to, when they pick up these cases, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that they really become the channel and a voice in a way, not from a soup kitchen type of mentality, but from an empowering mentality to us, so that we can act on it. I've had a case already from, and we didn't take out a watching brief, but it was another type of case from the Honorable Deirdre Bartman in a place called Laingsburg, where we drive when we go to Johannesburg. So I want to say, I want to urge all members from all sides of the house, where we also find young people who's just about to go off the track, refer them to us. I know social development also are, but refer them also to us to see whether one can't take them, put them into programs. I want to say, you know, the Minister, Lindiwe Zulu, she said she couldn't make it to the Chrysilia's graduation, so she sent a very senior DDG, Deputy Director General, and they were so blown away with the Chrysilia's program that they're now looking at how they can do and work with us at the end, for the end of year youth camps. You know, this end of year youth camp, because it normally is a waste of money, but how it can be used to get all our children, and I want to emphasize this, all our children, not this side, blue or green or red, or I don't know what color, you know, or orange, but all our children, because government must work for everyone. And until we work for everyone and respect everyone's dignity, I think we're going to move forward and stop this crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We move on to question 9. I see the Honourable Minister Schaefer.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker, and thanks, Honourable Syed, for the question. The only law enforcement officers at schools that we have permanently stationed are the school resource officers, which is in conjunction with the Department of Community Safety and the City of Cape Town, and we have 108 of these resource officers at 52 schools. Owing to security reasons, we do not divulge the names of the schools.
Any follow-ups? Member Syed?
Thank you very much for the response, Honourable MEC. Just for clarity, these peace officers which you mentioned now, are these the same peace officers which the department failed to deploy in the last few years? Thank you.
Minister? I didn't say peace officers. I think I said law enforcement officers, which are trained by the City of Cape Town, specifically to work in schools. So I'm not aware of peace officers that we haven't used.
Thank you. I see the ACDP. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just want to know, these school resource officers are basically in the metro. Yesterday or the day before, we were in Laingsburg High School. It was broken into on numerous occasions. We went to the police station yesterday. They also have facilities of police station. So how can we assist the schools in the rural areas with safety? Because this is, I think, in partnership with the City of Cape Town, but I'm talking about municipalities outside where they are struggling. And Laingsburg, they are vandalized on a regular basis, and they, you know, it's not conducive for the young, for our learners to be taught there. Thank you.
Thanks, Honourable Christians. Minister?
Thank you for that question. Yes, it's one I ask constantly within my department and within the Department of Community Safety. Unfortunately, the DOC's role is only to pay for some of the SROs. But the only way we are able to do this is because of the City of Cape Town's proactive approach in ensuring that these law enforcement officers are trained specifically to work in our schools. Now, obviously, because the Laingsburg is not a metro, they don't have metro police and the same kind of law enforcement capacity as the City of Cape Town has. So the only way we could do it is if other municipalities did something similar. But as my understanding is, after having asked that question many times, is that they aren't able to, they don't have that kind of capacity or budget. So it is a concern for me, and you know, because of the Metro Police, the City of Cape Town, having that approach and having that really proactive drive and a pretty big budget, they are able to assist us in that regard. So we have to look for other solutions for the rural communities. And any ideas in that regard will be much appreciated because I'm kind of running out of them. But we are talking about the possibilities of neighbourhood watches maybe being involved in that space. And I think that is something we can look at. We are going to be piloting in Khayelitsha shortly a neighbourhood watch model that DOCS has developed. And if that works, it may well be something we could roll out to rural communities.
Thank you, Minister. I see the Honourable Murray. I see you afterwards, Member Syed.
Mr. Speaker, I have a problem with the schools which, Minister, you are closing. It's become headquarters for gangs. It's being occupied by gangsters. It's vandalized. There's no security there. I can take you to Algiers River and show you some schools. This is a threat to community also. And I think if Mr. McKenzie listens, he might one day become a politician.
Honourable Murray.
I got to find out.
Honourable Murray, if you can just take your seat, I see the Chief Whip.
Yeah,
If you can just take your seat, I see the Chief Whip.
She's always on the feet.
But that's her job.
Thank you.
It's her job, Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd just like to ask for your guidance. This sounds very much like a new question to me.
It certainly does, Honourable Murray. You're not actually asking any follow-ups to the question actually on the printed paper.
I refer you to the question itself. It says peace officers and law enforcement officers at schools in communities under threat. These empty schools are situated amongst communities under threat. Right. So it's a valid question.
Well, you know what, Honourable Murray, thank you very much for the question. I'm going to leave it up to the Minister if she chooses to answer that because it's really cleverly politically put, and I'm not going to comment on whether she sees that as a new question or not. Thank you, Honourable Murray. Minister, I see.
Can I ask my question then?
No, you've asked your question.
No, they objected to it.
No, but I'm the... Honourable Murray, I heard your question. I'm going to pose it to the Minister.
Okay, Minister, if you can't answer, I'm sure the media will tell the people.
Thank you, Minister. I recognise you.
Thank you. May I answer? Whether I should answer or may answer is a different story, but I actually am happy to answer because your statement, as usual, is incorrect. I've only closed one school in the metro, and that's Uitse, which has taken 4 years in court, which we had to spend a lot of money for. And the reason why we closed it had largely to do with the issues of gangsterism in that area, in the community. We completely and utterly vandalized the school. So there aren't schools under threat, and while we certainly wouldn't put the SROs at empty schools because we are there to try and protect our learners and our teachers. So I'm not constantly closing schools. I've closed, as I said, one in the metro in my entire term of office. And well, my predecessors, not me. So, and those schools are certainly not schools where we would put SROs because it is a school. Property must be looked after by Public Works, but we're not going to put human beings there because they are there and they're needed for protecting the people, our teachers, and our learners at the schools.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Syed, I see you.
Deputy Speaker, responses, and thank you to our good friend, the former Premier, for shedding some more light, particularly with regards to certain communities that we've been visiting in terms of the school. What was the criteria for selecting the affected communities and schools, seeing that well after the announcement was made, we still witness many learners being attacked and weapons being brought onto the school premises. So what was the criteria for selecting the schools in the particular communities for these safety officers to be deployed? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you. They were actually done quite some time ago, and that it was done in consultation with DOCS, taking into account the figures of incidents that had been reported by the different schools. So we look at the statistics from Safe Schools, and I think they also worked on the police statistics, and as a result of that, they determined which were the highest risk schools at the time, and that's where we deployed them. We would like to deploy more at other places because there are others that need it, but we haven't been able to with the relevant budget.
Thank you, Minister. That is the end of questions for oral reply. Outstanding replies will be printed in the Hansard. We now move over to questions to the Premier without notice in terms of Rule 204. I recognise the Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, at the Premier's reply to the State of the Province debate, he made a commitment to unblock Tafelberg for affordable housing. And that is obviously something that we welcome. But I would like to ask the Premier, through you, Deputy Speaker, what actions or steps he's taken to implement this commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Premier?
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. Yes, I did commit to it, and Cabinet has had a briefing, as you are well aware. It is involved in litigation. And of course, what I do not want to see is litigation stretched out for the next 10 years or so. Our legal team is busy working with the legal teams on it at the moment, and I haven't got any finality on it, but we are working to try and find a solution and not 10 years worth of extended litigation.
Thank you, Premier. Honourable Hetman.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Premier, for that reply. It's very encouraging. But it doesn't really tell me much. Are you suggesting that you're seeking a settlement of the litigation?
I'm not saying I want to seek a settlement, but I want to try and find a solution. And obviously, we have to weigh up all possibilities when that gets brought before Cabinet to make that decision.
Thank you. Your final?
I get another one. Thank you.
You've done two. Sorry, Honourable Heron.
No, I've done.
You've done one question plus one, so it's
Is
one
that
more.
it? Thank you.
Sorry, it's one more.
Sorry.
For a moment, you got me confused. No problem.
I will learn the rules. This is only the fourth sitting of the House. Deputy Speaker, thank you. Now I've lost my question. The matter is in litigation, yes, and I mean, the solution is either that the matter is settled, and the review is agreed. I mean, the province cedes its decision and reviews and sets aside the previous cabinet decision. So I mean, the Premier is not really assisting us in taking this matter forward. If you say you're going to unblock Tafelberg, the expectation is that that will be made for affordable housing because it was in that context. So you have your legal team speaking to their legal team about what?
Thank you, Premier.
I think, as the Honourable Member knows, and he is of legal training as well, that it is actually probably very unfortunate for me to stand here and make some predicament on it. I need those teams to be able to talk to each other and come back with something that we can have a discussion in Cabinet on. That's how government needs to work. And once that has been, and I've said I'm seeking a solution. We will look for a solution, but we have to also apply our minds to whatever comes back to us. So, you know, I have to wait for that report to come back to us so I can take it to Cabinet for that discussion, to find a solution. Because, as I said right in the beginning, I do not want to have protracted, long legal battles when we actually have an asset that's deteriorating while this is happening. We have need, etc. And so we need to find this solution as quickly as possible. And we will have to apply our minds when those legal teams come back with whatever they can come up with.
Thank you, Premier. I see the Honourable Bartman.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, thank you. To the Premier, I would like to ask, what has his main achievements been in the first 100 days of him being in office? Thank you.
Thank you, Premier.
Thank you very much for that question, Honourable Member. Obviously, in your first 100 days, and one in politics always has this thing called 100 days, and so I suppose it is there purposefully to try and get you to exercise your mind, put pressure on the system, make sure that you get those processes and those promises and those manifesto items embedded in government. So I think, first of all, you know, post being elected, we've held the Bosporat, we've taken the manifesto to the teams, we've got the lead ministers with those various themes as announced here, from jobs to human empowerment to safety, to culture of the organization, etc., etc. And those plans are almost at finality. In actual fact, tomorrow we have reporting back of the lead ministers for those plans, which then become embedded into the plans of this government for the next 5 years with the targets that we need to. So a lot of work has happened between the manifesto and the Bospraat and now. So I think that's specifically one thing that's very encouraging to see, the kind of new thinking that's coming in, really pushing the boundaries so that we come up with something that really takes us to the next level. Of course, in these first 100 days, we've also done many other things. I've attended 3-day Lechotlas at a national level. We've had PCCs and PCFs. We've had MINMAYs. We've had speed dating sessions where the cabinet has met every single one of these municipalities, a local government initiative that really has been amazing, where we can say that each cabinet member and head of department has had an engagement with every single municipality. When I reported that to the president at the PCC, he was very, very interested in it, and we've just put a report together to send to him to say this is how we did it and what we did. And then, of course, there's the other things like landing or getting agreement with the cabinet that we've finalized the idea of having the audit of setting a benchmark of where we are financially as individuals, that lifestyle audit, and very happy that that's been agreed to. It is actually out on tender at the moment, and hopefully that service provider is put in place very, very soon so that we can I see there's some competition we've got in this province from another province, Premier Saul's, but I think we're ahead of him at the moment, and be the first province to have lifestyle audits in place. We've signed off on our own provincial handbook. I see the President has withdrawn the national handbook for review again, which I think is good. So that our handbook is signed off. And then perhaps talk about things like we're going close now. Next week we'll have the second First Thursdays, where we really are pushing hard to have open, transparent government, available government. People can just walk in at the last First Thursdays. 800 issues, ideas, and questions were lodged and are being processed and dealt with through all of the departments. And we hopefully have that again on this Thursday, coming next week, which is going to be a themed Thursday on film, but obviously anything from red tape to whatever issues anybody from the public, they can raise their issues.
Thank you, Premier. Member Bartman.
Speaker, Mr. Premier, considering that next month is Tourism Month and the contribution that tourism currently make in the Western Cape to the economy and to jobs, what has you done in your first 100 days in terms of these initial achievements that you've mentioned to help ensure the sustained increase in the tourism figures in our province? And what would your predictions be for the upcoming tourism sector in the season coming up?
Premier.
I think obviously the tourism sector, you're right, it's a very important sector in our economy, 300,000 jobs. And it has been put under pressure of late, specifically, I think, with regard to the drought, and we just managed to get out of that crisis, not totally in our province. Obviously, there are parts of our province that are still very, very seriously under pressure with the drought. But I think the main tourism areas are now out of the woods there, but now we've got the safety issue, which is front and center. It is front and center because of two reasons. I think anytime something happens in the tourism space, and the very unfortunate incident that happened on the mountain not so long ago gets amplified around the world. But also I think because this government is focusing on safety, we're putting out the murder numbers on a Monday. That has a big impact because it gets taken up in the news bulletins, in our newspapers, on our televisions, and then gets replicated in international media. That also runs at a risk. So we've had two engagements with the consul generals and the ambassadors. One general engagement where safety was spoken about, but yesterday we actually had a focused engagement with the Consul Generals. We invited them to come along and we spoke about the safety plans that we're putting in place. We spoke about our specific focus on providing services when tourists specifically or business tourists are mugged and lose their passports, right down to accidents and worse tragedies, and how our teams step in. These were teams we put in place during the World Cup, and they're still operating. They step in immediately to help because, of course, as I said in the beginning, this is a very important sector. And then I think the last part of your question was around the projections. If I have a look at the projections, and obviously if you need more detail, you actually need to focus this in with the Minister of Economic Opportunities, but we think we're looking at 2.5% to 5% potential growth in tourism. I think the sort of project that I was most proud of in the last 5 years was the airlift project, and we're still seeing unbelievable growth in that space. We've got the 15th flight coming in now at the end of the year, New York, Cape Town, and I was in a meeting today with the Italian ambassador, Consul General, and a visiting minister, and again, the question was brought up, what about connectivity from Italy, looking at tourism, and what about a direct flight to Cape Town? So it obviously is one of those things that keeps the momentum, and those are the exciting parts about this key component of growth and jobs in our province. And I suppose the two big job creators which we have been focusing on for the last while, tourism on the one side, 300,000 jobs, and agriculture and agri-processing on the other side with another 300,000 jobs. The one thing about tourism is you can ramp up way quicker. Agriculture is much longer term investment, takes a while to get crops in, takes a while to get orchards in, where tourism, if you get the numbers, you can jump them very, very quickly. And of course, I think we need to, I welcome the change in some of the visa regimes that we've now seen from the national government side. A number of countries now able to come without visa, which really, really does help. And the commitment to follow on with making it easier to get here from a visa point of view. All of those bode well, I think, for tourism growth into the future for the region.
Thanks, Premier. Final follow-up, Member Bartman.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. The Premier mentioned his next first Thursday's theme is going to be film. And he's also spoke about the risk of the drought and the risk of security in the Western Cape to tourism. I just wanted to find out, what message would you have to the youth, especially in rural communities, where they are struggling with the drought, where they're struggling with the issue of safety? We were on Langsburg, for example, recently with an oversight, and I walked past youth actually in Maikesfontein that was busy making a film there in the area, and they were getting funding and doing fundraising for that as well. So what message would you have to encourage others that despite the drought and despite the safety, please help us increase the tourism sector? Thank you.
Premier.
Absolutely, and of course, I mean, the reason that those sectors are chosen and supported is because they are the job-absorbing sectors. And so my advice to any young person was understanding your own talents, understanding your own abilities, make sure that you're looking to the future to an area that is going to be easier to get a job. And then, of course, add, if you can, tech. And I actually had the opportunity to see a short video clip that the colleague next to you, Gillian, showed me earlier today, which was a video clip of a young guy that you interviewed in one of our access centers. And you know, when you listen to a young guy like that, it's really encouraging. Someone who gives up his Saturdays to help young people with a future. That's really exciting, and it made me think of, and I mentioned it to him when I was in Classroom the other day, and I saw the access center, walked in, and a similar young person was there, busy helping two young ladies do applications online to be part of the Premier Pay project, because they'd completed their matric and looking for an opportunity open to them, and they were busy filling in their forms, and it was really, really great to see. So those kind of centers really offer real opportunity to young people. Make use of those centers. And also talk to us if there's not one in your area. Make sure that you're speaking to anybody in this house to say, please, can we be next on the list for one of those centers? Or other opportunities. We've got to, the one thing I think in South Africa we have to be dynamic. We have to be able to change quickly, and we have to do things that create opportunity. If we see things that don't work, well, let's cut them down and let's put that money into something else. We can't carry on doing the same thing that we've just kept on doing year after year. We're now into the 6th term of over 25 years into our new democracy, the highest youth unemployment rate in the world. We cannot accept that. We've got to bring in new opportunities and change. And so that would be my message to young people. Make sure that you use those opportunities that are given to you.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Member van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Through you to the Premier. Mr. Premier, given A, that the Constitution of South Africa enshrines in Chapter 3, Section 41, the 3 spheres of government, and I'm quoting, in the Republic, government is constituted as national, provincial, and local spheres of government, which are distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. And B, given that the power stipulated as per Chapter 6, dealing with the legislative authority of provinces, now taking that into account, are the powers of provinces being curtailed or eroded? Thank you.
Thank you, Premier.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I mean, straight away, when you say, are the powers being curtailed, or, I straight away think about policing, and we're trying to push the boundaries on policing. Our job is oversight. I'll never forget in the debate, the Honourable Marais saying provinces have just about no powers, we can do abattoirs, and, well, quite frankly, we can't accept that. We've got to push boundaries and go even further. I think about our own mandate and what we've done in the last while. We've put our own legislation in place around education to improve education outcomes and to make sure that we follow through with that mandate. We've done exactly the same thing with community safety. We're the only province with an act in community safety, which actually outlines new areas, but I think we need to go further than that. But I think your question about curtailing, at the same time as we want to push the boundaries on policing, there is policing legislation that definitely is trying to curtail policing in this country. They're talking about one single, it's called the Blue Police Force, one single police force. Now, if we can't get resources allocated to us in this province, if we have high crime levels in this province, and we have an ineffective police force, it's something that I just can't get in my mind to say, well, actually what we must do is we must stop the law enforcement at local government level, we must take control of the metro policing, we must actually manage everything to do with policing from a national level. Quite frankly, I think that is definitely going in the wrong direction, and that's trying to curtail our provincial powers. We need to fight that as hard as we can. It is definitely not going to make this country safer. I cannot believe we are the only province that is freaking out, screaming and shouting, and I'm only going to talk about the murder rate. I mean, the rape rate is even worse, but the murder rate, and we are screaming and shouting about it. Last year, 2018, in the Western Cape, we had 3,600 murders. I mean, that's unbelievable. It is unacceptable. It cannot be. But in Gauteng, they had 4,300. In KZN, they had 4,600. Huh? These are murders in South Africa. This policing force that is supposed to be dealing with these most serious of crimes, and now they want to curtail our powers in our province. I'm not sure why the other provinces aren't freaking out as well, because they should be, because we cannot curtail these powers. So I also think about one other thing, which is not about curtailing our powers, but something that is having a huge effect on us. And we've got a slow growth economy, bordering on recession year after year because of policies and management and SOEs and all the rest of the national government woes. And now what's happening is we are actually curtailing our services because it's having massive budgetary implications for us as a province. The Minister of Finance here is having to come up with all sorts of fancy footwork to try and get us as much as we can so that we can actually minimize those cuts. But at the moment, as we stand here, we've got some very severe cuts that every single one of these departments are going to have to be faced with. And what happens when you cut? you cut frontline services. That's just what happens. And it puts huge pressure on us. So, yeah, I think legislatively, curtailment within the constitutional framework, but actually also from a policy point of view, we'd be being curtailed because those bad policy decisions are having a massive effect on the economy of our country, which is really knocking onto every single facet of society.
Thank you, Premier. Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Taking into account what the Premier has just said, how can we counter that? How can the powers of provinces, and specifically the Western Cape, then be bolstered and ensuring that also this Parliament plays a far more significant role? Thank you.
Premier.
We've already won the votes and we've already won the power in this province. But I think, and it's a very interesting question. So I think, first of all, my first part of the answer will be, that's exactly why I'm building a relationship with Premier David Makura. It's exactly why I'm doing it, because we need provinces to start working together. We need provinces, and I mean, specifically Gauteng, they face exactly the same problem that we have, sometimes even exacerbated, if you think about pressure on education and health in those provinces. So we find commonality immediately in public transport. Does the honourable member want to ask me?
No, Premier, you continue.
So we can immediately see that when it comes to train systems, public transport, and devolution of public transport from a national level, so that PRASA, whether it be in Gauteng or PRASA being in the Western Cape, actually gets devolved down to provincial and local governments. And so that's really, really important. And that's the first thing is, how do we work together with other provinces? Perhaps further to your question, how do we in this House and our standing committees utilize not only the standing committees differently in how we get out to highlight these issues, but also I think we've got to actually have a look at how we even use the National Council of Provinces differently. The NCOP is a real critical part of our system, and actually get the National Council of Provinces to also be much more aggressive in how they are helping us change people's lives in this region. I think that's also really important. So yeah, definitely what the executive can do, and I think also maybe the last point is how we use our MinMix and how we build relationships through those platforms, how we build partnerships with like-minded MECs in other provinces and with our ministers, and get people to move beyond the politics to making a difference to the people.
Thank you, Premier. Any follow-up, honourable member?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. Premier, a number of years ago, the responsibility for our technical colleges, now called TVET colleges, was, for example, transferred from provincial competency to that now of the National Department of Higher Education and Training. Recently, the word science has been added there as well. So it seems to me as if there's a definite agenda from the national central government to try and erode this position. Now, you have shared with us some of your ideas in terms of how to counter that. My question is just, what more can we do to try and use within the existing legislation to try and see how provinces can take what I believe would be their rightful role? Thank you.
Thank you, Premier.
So I think, first of all, not all FET colleges were transferred, and that's why we specifically, and when I held the portfolio, now Minister Mayer, that we did not want Elsenburg to go to national. Of course, there's always that pressure to actually take it away, but we really resisted, and I think we did it well. Exactly in answer to the previous question, working in partnership in other provinces, convincing the Minister of Agriculture that this wasn't a good idea in the best interests of agriculture, of moving the agricultural colleges to higher education. And we managed to sort of stave that off. And I think it was the right thing to do, because it does help us create the competition. That also helps create the excellence. I think further on, I know that, and obviously, when you decide what you want to challenge, you can't challenge everything. So if I think about the FET colleges, I think about artisanal skills, I think about our universities. I think first of all we need to continue with good relationships with our universities. Yesterday I had a short interview with a student from Stellenbosch who actually wrote a scathing letter against myself and Albert Fritz, Minister Fritz, on what we're doing around safety, because she's a student studying political and criminology, political science and criminology. And so instead of writing an answer to a letter, I said, well, come and have a cup of coffee. And it was really interesting. I mean, we picked up some really good stuff, and we need to say, well, how do we engage more with our universities? We've got a specific platform that government engages and universities in this region come together. Check, we use them in research capabilities, etc. But I think we also need to up that engagement a bit more, because there are really great skills and knowledge, and I think sometimes those two are too far apart. But lastly, and I think something that we really are working on, we've been working on artisanal skills, on making sure that that relationship between business and government, or should we say skills, FET colleges and businesses in the practical space actually drifted apart in the last 25 years. I think one big mistake we made was where we would say that the apprenticeship system would go away. Now we've been actively re-encouraging that apprenticeship system. 35,000 is the target, which should be coming up quite soon, of young apprentices actually going into businesses as part of their training. We need to push that a lot more. And what the Minister of Education is looking at now is how we start that earlier, that dual system, so that at school level you're already getting to make that decision where you split. And I think that maybe even links to the previous question about how do young people see a future, that we actually start making those decisions earlier on. We compete around the world with some of these real leading nations in the economy and in innovation, and that's what they do. The percentage of young people that end up going to university versus going into a vocational training, it is totally skewed. They have very sort of small levels going initially into universities. Most people go through some kind of vocational training that starts at school level. We need to learn from those processes, and our Minister of Education is busy with that. I think it links to the STEM to STEAM Act, but it also, it really is about how we change things. We, as I said earlier, we have the highest youth unemployment rate in the world in our country. We have to do things differently, and we've got to start with young people at schools. And if they can start learning a trade and a vocational pathway at 13 and 14 rather than waiting for matric and then going in that direction, I think that's exactly the way to go. And I think we hopefully will be able to showcase that in our systems very shortly.
Thank you, Premier. That's the end of questions to the Premier. We now move over to statements by members. I recognise the DA. Honourable Allen.
Deputy Speaker, yesterday, the 28th of August, the South African Police Service, via its official Twitter account, announced a joint oversight visit by the Portfolio Committees on Police and Defence and Military Veterans to some of the communities in the Western Cape where the SANDF troops have been deployed. They made the announcement using the hashtag Operation Lockdown. The Standing Committee on Community Safety received an invitation on the 27th of August 2019 at 4:11, which is a day before the actual oversight meeting. And this letter was dated on the 23rd of August. However, it was only signed off on the 27th of August. This letter, it was only signed off on the 27th of August by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, the Honourable Tina Jumat. History confirms that the Honourable Jumat Peterson is no stranger to controversy, and the blatant disregard displayed in the afterthought invitation confirms that instead of Operation Lockdown, the ANC is hell-bent on Operation Lockout when it comes to supporting the DA in the Western Cape. The DA-led Western Cape government has proven itself as an enabling partner in making this province a safer space for everyone. It has upheld its constitutional obligations in a united form because it understands that safety is everyone's responsibility. We thus call on the opposition to join hands and disband this Operation Lockout. Safety is everyone's business, and we have no time to politic. Thank you.
Thank you. I see the Honourable, the ANC. Thank you, Member
Thank you,
Nkomo.
Deputy Speaker. There are too little women owning and taking part in our
Order.
economy. And the DA does not care about correcting this gender inequality. The DA does not even care that it does not have a representative ratio of women in leadership and other areas. In fact, the DA is totally silent on women empowerment. Instead, leaders like former Premier Helen Zille made fun of women in legislatures and thought they were just seat warmers. But in this month, the National Women's Month, we need a clear stance on this particular matter from the DA as a governing party in the province. In the Western Cape, we have too little women in management and in business in general. Especially in the wine industry, there are very few women and their participation in the industry. We need real owners beyond just the brand owners. But we know this government is not women-friendly, and it does not have a women-friendly budget, and clearly it does not regard women as equals that should be empowered to take up their positions next to others in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I see the EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the EFF to acknowledge the role that has been played by Khayelitsha Development Forum in proposing its crime intervention initiative. This initiative is called We Are Born, envisages the installment of CCTV cameras in the crime hotspots areas around Khayelitsha. We therefore note this initiative serves as a stellar example of the role played by the communities in combating crime. The EFF knows that the national and the provincial government should be playing a significant role in assisting that this initiative goes forward, despite the challenges that are experienced. Our people have been dying like flies, the townships, for years, while the most practical and progressive inputs on how to combat crime that have been made by the various stakeholders have fallen on deaf ears. We therefore call on government at the provincial level to support this initiative wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I recognise the DA. Honourable Member Botha.
Deputy Speaker, honourable members of this House, as the sun sets and the curtain is drawn on celebrating Women's Day and Women's Month 2019, Mr. Abuse will still be lingering in the dark. We have seen during this month the highlights of women's successes, the resilience portrayed by many women, women being carried by other women, and even women being praised by men. However, Deputy Speaker, the abuse perpetrators are still men. Cases of men being abused by women are still few. The abuser comes in different forms. They come dressed in suits, dressed in overalls, dressed in shorts and t-shirts, in name brands like Giorgio Armani, Gucci, and Lacoste. Some come even dressed in their help my sack like hempies. Abusers are often well educated and hold professional jobs. A recent survey by South African Council of Educators around teachers' misconduct for sexual abuse against learners per province is as follows: Eastern Cape 19%, Northern Cape 20%, KwaZulu-Natal 16%, Gauteng 17%, Free State 27%, Limpopo 24%, Mpumalanga 30%, and Western Cape 5%. And in the Western Cape, it's 5% too many. Abusers have also mastered becoming the abuser. For some of them, it is a topic around the braai as to who holds the trophy for doing it best. It is absolutely appalling. Deputy Speaker, we have to condemn abuse 365 days a year. We also have to start naming and shaming for who they are, for to abuse is a criminal offense. Deputy Speaker, the worst form of abuse is the emotional kind. No physical scars are left to be seen. But the perpetrators know how to break down inch by inch, piece by piece, until the victim has no sense of self-worth and are then manipulated like a piece of putty.
Finish off, Member.
Deputy Speaker, abusers are mainly men, And Deputy Speaker, in an Afrikaans saying, a man is a bok en 'n bok is 'n bliksem. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize Honourable Heron.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, at the last sitting of this Parliament, the Minister for Education, Honourable Schaefer, expressed confusion about the difference between double and triple, and she asked me to explain the difference. So here is a simple lesson in maths. A property of 17 hectares of land was offered to the City of Cape Town for 88 million rand. City professionals said that this was overvalued, and the city owned larger parcels of vacant land already reserved for housing nearby. The city elected not to buy the property at 88 million rand. The agent for the owner came back with a lower offer of 58 million rand. This was still, according to city experts, more than double the value of recent sales in the area. The city said no. The provincial government bought the land anyway. MEC Madikizela was correct when he said the city had investigated the land. It is true, the land acquisition officials determined that 58 million rand was more than double the real value. The province ignored that advice, and last week MEC Simmers confirmed that the province had paid 64.6 million rand for some of the land, not all of it. In fact, some critical servitude portions of the land are still to be acquired. So if 58 million rand is more than double the market value, then I trust that the MEC can understand that 88 million rand must be triple the market value. And I'm happy to share this evidence with her if she needs it. More concerning, Deputy Speaker, is that 5 hectares of the 17 hectares they bought is not developable because it is in a floodplain. So this means that the province has paid 5.4 million rand per developable hectare instead of 2.3 million rand per developable hectare, which is the price of the city's nearby recent acquisition at Annandale. So for the Minister's clarification, this is more than double the market price. In fact, it's 2.4 times the market price. But the House should take note that no one will answer why they did not use the free land that was offered to them at Potsdam. At zero cost for Potsdam, the price of Durenbach is, mathematically speaking, infinitely more expensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Heron. I see the ACDP.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Today is a sad day as our Christian brother is unfairly persecuted for what is standing up for what is right. The ACDP believes that abortion is murder and stands firmly behind our Christian brother, Dr. Jacques de Vos. Brother, you are not alone. We are with you. Dr. de Vos has a desire to advance the right of an unborn child. He never tried to persuade anybody, but motivated that scientifically proven the unborn child is a human being. Speaker, Dr. de Vos, formerly an intern at the 2 military hospitals, have been charged by the Health Professional Council of South Africa for unprofessional conduct and was prohibited from practicing medicine due to his views on abortion. As a result, he appeared the 27th of August 2019 before a disciplinary panel in Cape Town. The Health Professional Council has taken 2 years to give him a hearing. Deputy Speaker, as the ACDP, we support Dr. de Vos, and we are asking other Christians to rally behind him. The ACDP party members supported him at his hearing, and we will be there again in October. Let us unite with Dr. de Vos and to support him at his hearing in October, showing the Health Professional Council that they are up against millions of Christians with the same view. We ask the Health Professional Council to stop persecuting Dr. de Vos for his pro-life views and demand that his medical license be reinstated with immediate effect. The ACDP wants to appeal to Christians to sign a petition online to stand with our dear brother de Vos. Remember, Christians, together we will overcome evil, because evil can only prevail when good people keep quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Christians, I see the ANC.
Deputy Speaker, statement on Children Commissioner and Rights. The Western Cape have been fed DA lies, smoke and mirrors. Some of these lies come from the tenor of Premier Helen Zille, who walked in and promised the Constitutional Children Commissioner to be installed. She then ran away from her own brainwave and even tried to make optional this constitutional duty. She tried to tell us research is needed on the topic. Repeatedly, we found out that the research had been done. She lied to us. The rights of children get tempered upon regularly in the Western Cape, as this DA government does not care of their future. Just yesterday, thousands of children were stranded next to the roads due to dispute between the education department and bus operators. At various locations, we find children living next to the roads in pouring winter rain, some not even attending school. Ironically, these children are the victims of evictions and thrown off farms with a house. Some are expected to also change schools where they will not be taught in the same language. A children commissioner could have assisted. Now we urgently need national government or some competent institution to investigate this abuse of poor and vulnerable children. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I see the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In March 2019, a bombshell report titled the High-Level Panel Report on State Security was released by the Presidency on how the SSA has been repurposed by the ANC-led government to serve the political interests of the ANC, his then President Jacob Zuma, his cabinet friends and cadres, some of whom remain in National Parliament and in the National Cabinet today. The report showed the blatant disregard for legislation, unlawful spying and criminality. Naturally, one has to question his sister organization, the SAPS Crime Intelligence. South Africa faces one of its highest crime rates in the world, with gang violence being most prevalent as well as organized crime. SSA and SAPS Crime Intelligence need to work together to improve public safety. However, the Crime Intelligence Unit has been a victim of the SSA intelligence as they lack effective strategies to do their work. We therefore call on President Ramaphosa to urgently appoint a review for the dysfunctional SAPS Crime Intelligence Unit. If crime intelligence is not beefed up urgently, the impact of the army will not be felt by communities. We do not only need the army, we need to fight crime intelligently. A case in point is the truck burning and truck hijackings of recent. This has been happening for months in KwaZulu-Natal. We know this started to happen in Cape Town. How our crime intelligence unit does not pick this up is beyond me. The video footage of this has been circling for months on social media. Many undisputed facts and arguments confirms there are issues within crime intelligence. Yet we receive no response, no clear strategy from our National Minister of Intelligence and on police, with integration on the Western Cape policing needs and priorities. We have a poor and under-resourced crime intelligence unit. Our people are dying on a daily basis because of the lack of crime intelligence strategy in this country. When will enough be enough? We need intelligence now. We need intervention now. We need the President to act now to sort out our dysfunctional crime intelligence in this country.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I note that the Freedom Front Plus is not in the House. I then move over to Al Jamal. You're done? Okay, thank you very much. I then see the DA.
Young Speaker, ons het die afgelope maand Vroue Maand gevier. Dis 'n wonderlike inisiatief in reaksie op die historiese miskenning van vroue se regte. Maar ons kan nie ontken dat 97,4% van ons gevangenes mans is nie. En die 2,6% van vroue wat tronk toe gestuur word, se oortredings is dikwels deur mans en spesifiek mans naby aan hulle ontlok. Suid-Afrika se tronkbevolking, uitgedrukte persentasie van die totale bevolking, is dubbel die van ons buurlande. Hoekom is so baie mans en veral jong mans vandag in die tronk? Ons aandag is ook in die afgelope weke met die ontplooiing van die weermag in sekere gemeenskappe opnuut gevestig op die probleem van bendes en interpersoonlike geweld. Waarom reageer sommige mense en kennelik veral mans met geweld op enige konfrontasie? En hoe kan hierdie tendens verbreek word? Gedrag is iets wat aangeleer word. En ons ken die gesegde, woorde wek, maar voorbeelde trek. Volgens Statistiek Suid-Afrika word net 36% van kinders tot op ouderdom 4 jaar groot met beide hulle biologiese ouers. Die meerderheid kinders kom dus uit enkelouer gesinne. En ekonomiese realiteite maak dat baie ouers minder tyd met hul kinders deurbring as wat in die verlede die geval was. Ons het volwassenes nodig wat deur goeie voorbeelde as rolmodelle vir kinders kan optree. Gelukkig vind ons sulke rolmodelle in ons skole, by ons kerke en by talle jeugbewegings. Ons vind hulle in ons woonbuurte waar deur hulle voorbeeld bure se kinders help vorm. Ek wil daarom vandag hulde bring aan daardie vrywilligers in alle gemeenskappe, veral mans, wat as goeie, voorbeeldige rolmodelle vir ons seuns dien. Ek dank u.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. We now move over. Is there a minister who wishes to respond as contemplated in Standing Rule 145.6, not exceeding 5 minutes? No, there isn't. That is the end of members' statements. We now move over to notices of motion in terms of Rule 151. Are there any motions where notice is given? I see the DA. Yes, Honourable Mackenzie.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House debate our ailing rail transport system and the impact on our road infrastructure.
Thank you. Notice taken. Yes, Honourable Member Said.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move with notice that the House debates factors contributing to the poor and declining matric pass rates in the Western Cape Province. Thank you.
Thank you. Notice taken. Any further members? Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Thank you. Notice of a motion that I would like this House to debate the effect of the ongoing drought in certain regions of the Western Cape and the province's readiness for the next drought in those areas that have benefited from this year's winter rains. I so move.
Thank you. Notice taken. Honourable Member Christians.
That the House debates how this government is going to deal with the ongoing scores of bullying in our Western Cape schools.
Thank you. Notice taken. I see the Honourable DA. Member Mackenzie.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice that this House debates the rural development strategy with focus on hospitals, human resettlement, policing and social development.
Notice taken. Thank you. I see Honourable Member Mkondlu.
Deputy Speaker, I move that the House debate the economic situation in the Cape Flats.
Notice taken. Thank you. I tend to move over. If there's no one there, then I'll go back to Member Said.
Can I?
Yes, because they were not quick enough.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this legislature notes the promises by the Public Works Department and the Education Department to the parents and learners of the Kwafaku School in Lower Crossroads are broken, as this experimental building with the styrofoam cladding will not be replaced in time at the end of the year. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Notice taken. I see Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that this House debates small business development, youth development, the funding and the impact of non-payment on small businesses.
Notice taken. Thank you. To the other, no. Any other motions with notice? No. That concludes notices of motion. We move over to motions without notice. Are there any motions without notice? Yes, Honourable Member.
I move without notice that this legislature urges all municipalities and also ESCOM to secure all security points after a 9-year-old boy from George died of electrocution. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Sorry, no objections. Agreed to. I see Honourable Member Bosman.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes that Ms. Susanna Juan has been a teacher at Excelsior Primary School in Calitzdorp for the last 36 years. Further notes that Ms. Juan will be retiring this month and congratulates Ms. Juan for her long years of dedicated service to the learners of the Kannaland municipality. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. I see Honourable Said. Members, you've got to be like, stand up so I can see you. Thank you.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House urges the Education Department and its MEC to take all possible steps to prevent violence at schools, as it is reported that there were 40 knife stabbings at schools so far this year. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. I saw Honourable Wartman first, and then I'll move over to the side.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes that approximately 800 to 1,000 community members visit the Cape Access Centre in Laingsburg per month, 10% of the community. further notes that this centre trains community members to pass the International Computers Driver's License, have introduced an e-learner program to assist community members to breach the technological gap so that they can write the ICDL, commends Mr. Edward Galant, the centre manager, for going out to farming communities on Saturdays when the centre is closed during his own personal time to train them in the various computer skills, commends the centre further for assisting youths in drawing up CVs, completing tertiary education applications, and assisting entrepreneurs with business proposals, and congratulates the Cape Access team in Langsburg for the excellent work they are doing in the community. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Can I just give me 1 second? Can I just ask Honourable Member if you could just clarify that there was an objection on the motion prior to Member Bartman?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I objected to the motion being moved without notice, not objecting to the motion itself.
Okay, so there was an objection to the motion being moved without notice. If I can just correct that with the stable staff for the record. It was prior to Member Bartman's...
Just for the record, if I may, Deputy Speaker.
Yes, please.
That was the motion before Member Bartman and Member Syed's motion.
Got it. Thank you. For the record, it was Member Syed's motion. I recognize a member... yes, sir. Sorry, I've got for a second. I recognize you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that the South African Police Service recovered 1,037 illegal firearms in the province between November 2018 and July 2019. Applauds SAPS for the great work and calls on the National Commissioner to ensure that all these guns are destroyed and not sold back to the gangs. I so move.
Thank you, Member Kama. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. I'm moving over to this side. Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House congratulates Mitchell's Plain-born author Dr. Ethel Williams for hosting the first ever Cape Flats Book Festival in Lentig here in Mitchell's Plain this weekend. Further call on all the people of the Cape Flats to attend this all-important book show and show their support. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Member Van Vogel, your hand was up.
Thank you, Speaker. Motion without notice that this legislature notes the high number of objections against Cape Town property rights in general, the satisfaction with the city unilaterally increasing payments to tax working class people out of their homes. I thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. And I'm sorry, I oversaw the EFF, so you get your... I recognize you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the EFF, I rise for the motion that to note that a 19-year-old student, Winene Mkhwetjan, has been missing since the 24th of August, 2019. Further note that it comes to the backdrop of women going missing in the province for the past few years. Further note that Winene disappeared highlights how unsafe women and children are in the province. Therefore, calls on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and the MEC for Safety and Security and all political structures and the wider community to intensify the call for Winene to be brought home very safe. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. I see Honourable Bosman.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes that Mr. Dani van der Westhuizen and his cellar team at Calitzdorp Cellars in Kannaland Municipality has won several awards at the South African National Wine Show of 2019. Further notes that these awards will go a very long way in creating more employment opportunities for the people of Kannaland who are suffering under the impact of the drought, and congratulates Mr. van der Westhuizen and his cellar team on this prestigious award, where they won the Champion Port Trophy for their Vintage Port 2019, as well as the gold medal for their Red Muscadel 2019. And wish them well in their journeys and future endeavours. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Honourable Barnes.
Speaker, motion without notice that this legislature urges the investigation authorities to thoroughly probe last week's weekend brawls in Langeban at the sports bar and yacht club, where senior Springbok rugby forward Ibn Edsbath, Samples and local residents got involved in a gun pointing, knife stabbing of 2 people, brick throwing with damage to his car, physical assault and reportedly racist utterances hurled around, and also urgently make public their findings to clear up any confusion that may exist. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Honourable Bartman.
On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion without notice that this House notes that it was reported that 2 suspects, aged 33 and 35, believed to be wanted in criminal cases in Gauteng, Limpopo, and Northwest, have been arrested during a routine patrol by SAPS in Laingsburg municipality. Further notes that the police seized 4 illegal firearms and ammunition after searching the suspects' vehicles. Also notes that the 3 firearms were filed of serial number, 1 firearm of a deceased lawful owner, 21 9mm rounds of ammunition, 3 revolver rounds ammunition were seized as well. Congratulates the SAPS Laingsburg station for this arrest and confiscation of firearms and commends them for their hard work and dedication towards the community.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Member Syed. And then I see you, ACDP.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House expresses concern over the strike by small operator buses that provide essential learner transport to learners that stay too far from the schools to walk there. And that this House urges the Department and the MEC to in time settle differences to avoid such strikes in future, as it leaves poor parents in a panic as they cannot afford alternative transport, and that we commend all parties for bringing this past week's strike to a quick end. I thank you, Deputy
Thank you
Speaker.
very much. Are there any objections? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I see Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Change, I praise the MEC indirectly, Deputy
Thanks,
Speaker.
Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ACDP want
Order.
to applaud.
Order, sorry, order. Can I hear the ACDP? Thank you. I see you, Honourable Christians.
Deputy Speaker, the ACDP want to applaud Advocate Keith Matee, a senior counsel, together with attorneys Martus de Wet and Kotso Modise of the Wet Weaponer attorneys, offered to assist Dr. De Vos pro bono to defend him at the disciplinary hearing against the Health Professional Council of South Africa for the fight to advance the right of an unborn child. I thank you.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Any other motions? Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes and commends the actions taken by authorities against people who smuggled 1 or possibly 2 lion cubs from Limpopo to Athlone. Further, welcomes the arrest of 1 suspect and the rescue of these wild animals from urban enclosures. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections to the motion itself? Motion agreed to. Honourable Barnes, and then I see Honourable Said.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice that this legislature notes concern of another bylaw Cape Town intends putting in place with unenforceable stipulations that will gatekeep to only allow certain people on beaches, excluding poor or homeless residents, and banning crude languages. Further notes that even human rights activists question this bylaw, and that ordinary people think the city and its leaders are lunatics, like with the drive to criminalize and fine poor people living on the streets. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Member Syed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes and condemns the light sanction that the Westerford School in Rondebosch, where a prefect's badge was taken for only 2 weeks after a racist utterance. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. Thank
and of
you.
the
Are there
House.
any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Yes, there are objections. The motion will be printed.
Surprise.
The motion will be printed on the order paper. Are there any other motions without notice? Have I recognized everybody? Thank you. That concludes motions without notice. Before we adjourn, members, I'd like to inform the members that the CPA annual general meeting will commence immediately after the adjournment of the House. That concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned. Yes.